Welcome one and all, it's time for yet another Warhammer, the Age of Sigmar tournament report. We're only a couple of months away from the brand new season for Age of Sigmar, but does this first season of the current edition still have some juice left to be squeezed, or is it all dried out? Let's find out right now. As you can see, the Stardrake is back in action, which pretty recently had an update that allowed it to take any unit in its regiment, which makes it a much more tempting prospect, because some of the units that are pretty hot out there, Vanguard units for example, previously would have been locked out of a Stardrake, so you would have had to take specific heroes to bring those sought after units, such as the Long Strikes and the Paladors and such. But now, Stardrake can take whoever he wants. So let's dive in and have a look. This is the Realmgate Rebellion 6 from the TSN Arena, and just to add some extra spice on top of it, I was also TOing the event because Rob is currently out of the country, so couldn't do it, and another TO was going to step in but was unavailable. So then a few days before, I was asked if I wanted to do it, and I was going to play in the event anyway. So I thought, why not? Why don't I play in the event and also be the TO at the same time? That doesn't sound like too much responsibility. And actually it wasn't too bad because it was only a fairly small event. It wasn't stocked to full capacity in there. So let's dive into my Stormcast Eternals list. 2,000 points. Well, this is actually 1990, this list. So we have, as the general, the mighty Lord Celestant on Stardrake for 480 points. With Quicksilver Draft for that Strike First ability, and also my sub-faction is the Lightning Echelon, which is also going to give the Stardrake the ability to strike first when charging sometimes as well. So lots of Strike First abilities coming up for the Stardrake. Then I've also given the Stardrake Envoy of the Heavens, which is when a unit dies in the next turn you can then put a ward save onto a unit, which I generally forget to do, but I put it in there anyway. And in the Stardrake's regiment we have 3 Praetors, who are going to be hanging around to provide a ward save to the Stardrake at all times, hopefully, as long as he doesn't get any crazy ideas and start charging out of their combat range, which is how close you need to be. Then, also, we have the Questors. Let's get some close-ups, actually. So, there's the Questors, close-up of one of them, nice blurry shot of the others. So, Questors, one of my favourite units currently in this edition, since I've had them painted. I like their decent damage output, but that's not the main thing they do. It's the fact that you can make one objective very difficult to kick them off, because they get a ward save on a specific objective that you choose, and get bonus to control score. But the most important thing is their once per game teleport. So normally, when the Stormcast Eternal units drop down, that's where they're stuck. However you send them there, whether it's from the sky or whether it's through the teleportal, then they're stuck in that position, especially if they're infantry. They're very slow. So having another teleport that they can use later to escape from a bad situation, or if that area of the battlefield becomes irrelevant and they need to relocate themselves, very, very handy for them. They also have a good number of wounds for the points, so I'm really enjoying those. We've also got, speaking of good wounds for the points, by Stormcast standards, we've got Paladors. So 6 of them, reinforced unit with the javelins, and another unit that I'm liking a lot with their ability to, for example, run and shoot and charge and then shoot again and then fight and then power through and run away 14 inches. Very, very mobile. They can do decent damage against the right target just with sheer weight of attacks, and just a big damage sponge as well, so 30 wounds in that unit. Then, what else have we got? We've got the Long Strike, so you can see down there. Only 3 though, because they're a bit pricey now. With the changes they've had, they've been creeping up in cost, and for a reinforced unit of 6 is actually pretty damn expensive now. So there's a big investment, so I think 3 is the way to go for me at the moment. And they can still do a good job. If you're thinking of going all in and killing a big hero monster or something, then they're still great at weakening it, so something else can run in and finish the job. And they're also good at potentially sniping out smaller heroes as well, which they can still do a good job of with only 3 of them. And in fact, 6 was sometimes overkill at shooting at small heroes. Then we've also got, that's the entire General's Regiment. So there's a lot in there. So I might be giving away the Slay the Entourage quite a bit. In the next regiment, we've got the Knight Arcanum, who is sitting on the portal there. Knight Arcanum, who is good at manifestations, good at casting them, good at unbinding them, so the Purple Sun will hopefully come up there. And also enemy manifestations can't chase him down, so I often forget that that's a thing, and then forget to position the wizard in such a way that would prevent the enemy from bringing manifestations towards me. But anyway, we've also got the Knight Relictor. So you can see the Knight Relictor has borrowed Ionis's armour after the new Ionis was given fancy new Stormstrike armour. So this Knight Relictor has now taken over his old chunky suit. Got Lydia in the chat. Good evening. Good evening to the other 4 viewers that are currently watching right now. I'm sure that number will creep up throughout the broadcast. So, Knight Relictor, good at reducing enemy ward saves, but you do have to get in harm's way to do it. You have to be fairly close to the enemy, and teleporting people around is the main thing. So we've got a teleport there, we've got teleports from the portal, we've got the quest doors teleporting, and units coming out the sky, so it should be good for battle tactics. Then, what else have we got? We've got 5 Vigilors, so mediocre damage against tough targets, but all they need to do really is 1 or 2 wounds, which then means everyone else gets +1 to hit against that unit for the entire turn. So, very powerful ability that saves you a lot of command points on all-out attack on your other units, and it also means that you can double up multiple units attacking the same thing, and basically all-out attack on all of them, just with doing some damage first with the Vigilors. And they can usually reliably do 1 wound to pretty much anything. Then we've got 5 Liberators, because they're cheap, and they can just drop down and sit somewhere to score a battle tactic. And if they don't get involved in the game too much, it's not much of a loss because they're cheap. That is the reason they're in there. They're only 100 points, and it's still 10 wounds, and under the right circumstances they can do a job defensively or offensively, just not very often. Usually they're going to be there just to block or to score a battle tactic. And that is the entire list. So, moving on into Game 1. Battle for the Pass. So this is the one where you can see you've got these 2 slightly off-center deployment areas, and you score big points if you take the objective that's wholly inside your opponent's territory, and slightly less points if you take the others. And I'm up against the Sylvaneth in Game 1, so I'm just going to pull up that list right now, and then I can tell you all about it. So, let's see. It has the Forbidden Power Manifestation Law. Let me just get into the close-ups of that army. I've got more close-ups of all the armies later from a hobby and painting perspective, but this one is a very nice army. Alarielle the Everqueen, 680 points of coming back to life badness. So, she doesn't die very easily, and she can come back, and she can bring other units back. And she's pretty good at everything. I think she has a shooting attack as well as being pretty good at fighting with the beetle and spellcasting. So just an all-round solid unit. And then there's a unit of reinforced Kurnoth Hunters with scythes right there in front of Alarielle. And the Revenant Seekers, which are these 3 here, which are just fast cavalry. In the next regiment, there is a Branch Witch, who is somewhere, might be hiding out in the forest, not emerged yet. Oh, there it is. There we go, there's the Branch Witch. And there's a unit of Kurnoth Hunters with Kurnoth Greatbows in that regiment, who are over here, which is up at the top there behind that large building you can see. So, there they are. And they are next to... This is going to be the Warsong Revenant. So, that has, let's see, Spellsinger and Seed of Rebirth. So potentially when you kill that unit, this model can just choose not to die, potentially, on I think it's on a dice roll, and then you come back on a wound, if that's correct. So, it is 3 drops, the same as me, so the roll-off is actually important for deciding who's going to get to go first, and I believe that I win the roll-off, so I put something down first, and then I force my opponent to go first. So what's my game plan in this one? Let's have a look at my deployment. You can see off the table I've got my shooting units, because why have them on the table and walk towards the enemy when they can just drop down and fire? You don't have to worry about being 9 inches away because you don't want to be close anyway. And we've got the quest doors entirely in this piece of terrain, which is something I don't do enough really, putting units inside the forests so they can't be shot at. And I've got liberators who are going to be guarding my home objectives to stop any enemies thinking about like popping up woods near it or teleporting to it in that way. We've got the praetors hanging out near to the teleportal so that when the Stardrake goes away they can just go boop and be teleported next to him. Paladors don't need to be too far forward, they're just waiting to strike, because potentially you can get a turn 1 20-inch move and then a charge after shooting, and then shoot again, and then fight. So it's a really big threat range for anything that's just left out in the open on its own. So you don't have to position them too well to actually get good value out of them, because they're so fast. And I've quest marked the objective at the top, which is this one here, which means that the quest doors are going to get a ward save and a bonus to control score when they're on that one. And my plan is to push forward when the time comes. I don't want to get doubled though, so making my opponent go first will help with that. I want to push forward and kind of stop the enemy in their tracks, because I don't think they're going to be too wildly aggressive, knowing that I could get the double turn. And with things like Paladors, if they get the double, that's quite significant, because even if they're stuck in combat, they can still retreat and then shoot you, and then charge you again, and then shoot you again, and then fight you. And I've got a Stardrake with multiple ways to get strike first, so you don't want to be doubled by the Stormcast, so I don't think they're going to be super aggressive and get all the way up to here. And I think that if they play it quite conservatively, which they probably should, then I'm going to be able to advance with my fast units and kind of try and lock down these objectives. If I can get this little triangle of 3 objectives here under my control, then hopefully I can start building up a lead, because I don't think I'm going to outgrind the Sylvaneth, because Alarielle can keep bringing things back. Unless I get a really good opportunity to kill her, in that case maybe I could win it. But overall, I think because of their ability to return more units than I can, in general, I probably just want to try and build up points early in the game, and then at the end of the game it'll probably start creeping away from me as the enemy return more units to life than I can, if we get into a position where we start trading units back and forth. And all the objectives, even though it seems like they're fairly far apart, it's not that big of an area that you need to be fighting over to be in with a chance of taking all of them. Really, the centre of the battlefield, any units that are there are within striking distance of all the objectives, so it's not a massive distance. So all my teleports aren't as useful as in some missions where the objectives are even further scattered around than this. So, turn 1. Got my opponent going first, and some woods have been popped out immediately around the centre of the table there. And a manifestation. I can't remember what this one's called, but I do know that I wouldn't be able to land next to it. And there's a picture of the beetle's feet. I think I was trying to get a picture of the base of Alarielle, which is obviously very lavish. I countercast a purple sun, just to get it out there, and then I don't have to cast it on my own turn then, so I could maybe do a different spell. Because my Knight Arcanum is just a 1-cast wizard. Don't have the luxury of Krondys doing multiple spells in this one. And you can see immediately that the Kurnoths with the bows have moved up there, and they're going to be blasting away. They're onto the quest-marked objective, which is okay by me, because that means if the quest doors go and attack them and get a charge into them, I'll then get my ward save and can start fighting on this objective, which is what the quest doors want to do anyway. Palador's all-out defense against the shooting that comes in, and they do take some wounds there. I think one of them is down to 1 wound there, obscured by the tail. And the Purple Sun takes a bit of shooting as well, maybe from one that wasn't in range. And that's the turn. So, 3 points scored. And, hold on. Which battle tactic was it? Was it battle tactic even chosen? I don't think a battle tactic was actually selected in this turn. Because my opponent was thinking, I don't really want to do seize the centre. Because, like I was saying, you don't want to be too aggressive and put your units right in the middle against a potential Stormcast double turn. So I think not choosing a tactic it's a bold move. It goes into my strategy of trying to build an early lead and then have that slowly dwindled over the course of the game. But it also means that you're not failing a tactic, because any of them would have been risky or difficult to pull off in turn 1. So not wasting one, so that they're all still available later. You can understand the logic there. So, onto my turn. And I go for attack on 2 fronts. So, take 2 objectives, one of which is taken from the enemy. So if we go back to this shot, I want to take this one. And I can also take the other side objective, which is down here, which I do with the Stardrake and the Praetors. Have jumped straight onto that one. The Liberators are just camped in the middle of my home objective with the heroes. And Paladors, you can see have got into combat there. I finest houred the Paladors because I knew I was going to throw them into the Kurnoths with bows. And I also dropped down the Long Strikes and the Vigilors as well. I really wanted to go all in and just murder that unit. And I've also got them, you can see, I've got the teleport chamber right here, which is fairly close to those units. So if I need to reposition any of them, they can always move to it and then be teleported from it. And I've also got the Knight Relictor here as well. So I do have options for moving these units around later. But I feel like they're going to be safe here because we've got multiple layers of powerful units between them and the enemy for now. And you can see that the Paladors and the Purple Sun combine do kill most of the Kurnoths with all-out attack as well, and the remaining 2 decide at the end of the combat, they decide they don't want to fight anymore, they're going to teleport away, which is a good idea probably. Because if they're sitting there, and I got the next turn for example, the Paladors could retreat and shoot them and then charge them again, which wouldn't be good news for them. As it stands, if I do get access to a double turn here, I quite like the look of it, because we've got another unit of Kurnoths right there, and we've got Paladors, a Purple Sun, and a Stardrake all within striking distance of that one unit, so it could potentially take out a lot of them in one go as well, which feeds into my game plan of pin the enemy back so that they're not on the 2 side objectives, which is going to allow me to build up more points over the course of the game. So, let's find out. So I've got 9 points. In order to get maximum, you need to take the enemy home objective, otherwise you can only ever get 9. And what's this? A double turn. Feels pretty good. So the Liberators have charged out there to attack these trees, because why not? I've moved the Vigilors back. Questors have got onto their favourite objective. The Paladors were going to attack... Let me have a look here, see who was in there. It was... the Warsong Revenant, I think, was hanging out inside these woods. So they get up there and just kill the Warsong Revenant, who flies, which is why I was able to see them through these wild woods. We've got Dom in the chat. Good evening. One of the players from the event right there. And we've got Nisgard as well, who loves Masters of the Universe, apparently. Well, good to know. Then you can see that I did manage to get my Stardrake and the Purple Sun into the Kurnoths, because I decided that the Paladors would be best served going after one of the heroes, who I don't think can be brought back. Can the heroes be brought back by Alariel? I'm not 100% sure. There are certain things in the list, in the army list overall, that can't be brought back. I don't know if that's one of them, but it did have the ability to get a wound back. If if there's a killing blow against it, then it can potentially survive. But I think that roll was failed and it just died. So maybe it can come back, but I'm cool with that because you can't bring back that many units at once. It's just one at a time. When the Stardrake got into the Kernoths, I was thinking the Stardrake can just eat like 3 of them before combat even starts. That would be great. Purple Sun can help out with the lack of rend as well on some of the Stardrake attacks. And the Praetors are in there as well. But as you can see, I didn't actually kill that many of them, so the Stardrake didn't do that well. There's also this little hero there, the Branch Witch. And I also shot down one of these as well, one of the Revenant Seekers. See how I all-out attacked and finest houred the Stardrake and still didn't kill that many. And then all-out defense on the Praetors, because my opponent rightly identified the Praetors as a potential weak link. If you can kill that unit, get rid of the Stardrake's ward save. Somewhat, because if you kill them, then you've killed one of my units. So with my trait, I can then give the Stardrake a ward save in the next turn anyway. So if you're going to kill the bodyguard, ideally you want to be then attacking the Stardrake in a different phase of the same turn. Or in the same phase but with a different unit, so the ward save's properly gone. So, I'm not particularly satisfied with the Stardrake's performance there. Could have done with killing more of them, and at this point I'm thinking, maybe the Paladors should have tried to join in there as well. And you can see the Purple Sun did get killed in the end. And what else did I have available? I can't remember where I've put the long strikes. Because there's no picture of them, and I feel a sneeze coming on. It was 2 sneezes, in fact. So, I can't remember where I sent the long strikes. But they don't seem to be... Oh, there they are. Hiding behind the Stardrake there. So I got them into a position where I could try and shoot these guys. But I think they redeployed 1 inch, which meant that not all of the long strikes could see them. So I didn't get much shooting off with them there. So I score 5 points, because obviously I'm not allowed a tactic, I don't have the enemy home objective, and I was hoping that I could take that with something here, because if the Stardrake had killed lots of them, of course the Praetors could have then piled in onto the objective. But sadly, didn't kill enough of them, and I think they decided to stick around in combat there as well, rather than fleeing. So, into the enemy turn, my opponent goes for Slay the Entourage and wants to kill the Praetors. And you can see that it's dead immediately. One of the first things in the turn that happens, I think it was a magic spell that killed it. So there's the battle tactic. So Stardrake, no ward save now. And that is the dream, really. If you're facing off against the Stardrake that can give itself a ward save when a unit dies, do it. Kill something in the same turn that you can then murder the Stardrake. So you can see, with all the shooting and such that it's taking, it's dropping down to 9 wounds at the moment. And it's facing Kernoths and Alariel now. So this isn't too bad, because this is tying up a huge amount of the enemy's army into one very small space, which is on their home objective, which means they're not scoring these 2 objectives. And I've still got significant units elsewhere, so the Stardrake does go down, which is sad. My opponent scores 5 as well, for a battle tactic and for holding their own home objective. So looking at this, we've had 2 turns each. I'm in the lead by, let's see, by 6 points, so I'm feeling pretty good about this. I've still got my Paladors, who are a very hard-hitting unit, and I've got possession of these 3 objectives. If my opponent goes next, then maybe it consolidate onto these 2 objectives, but probably doesn't want to go near this one, because that's where all my powerful units are now. And I get first crack at round number 3, so I go for Seize the Centre. And if you look at this position, you see it's not that risky because the enemy aren't really within striking distance. I can have a unit like there and there. The Liberators are right in the area. So, the Questors stretch themselves out, so they're on the favourite objective and also within 3. And I've also got the Relictor there. The Paladors blast in to the Kernoths and Alariel, hoping to just get in there and do some serious damage and hold them there for another turn or two. But then this happens. Despite all our defense, they all die. Wow, wow, wow. So, that is not ideal. Not a great round from them. I think, did I even kill one Kurnoth? Okay, so I killed one, but then I lost all the Paladors. And how many Paladors were there at this point? 1, 2, 3, 4... I can't remember if there was more than that. But either way, they all get killed, which on the plus side means I can now bring back 3 Paladors at some point. On the other hand, they didn't really achieve anything by doing this because they barely killed any models at all. So they might as well have not done it and just held themselves back, ready for a counter-strike. But can't account for them having a poor round of attacks. You can see I had the Vigilors there as well to give them +1 to hit by doing a wound on something. But even that didn't work out. So, I still get big score, but I'm down my 2 hardest hitting units now. Okay, then my opponent goes for Do Not Waver in round 3. 2 units fight, no units die. That looks like a safe bet at the moment because you can just fight the Vigilors or the Knight Relictor. You don't have to go after the Questors, who are a bit tougher, a bit harder hitting. You can see also, by the way, I teleported my Liberators up into the top corner, which is for 2 reasons. One, it sets me up for battle tactics, but it also threatens to do that. So my opponent is likely going to turn round and attack them with something, which continues my strategy of lock down this whole area and keep the enemy kind of pinned back outside of the big scoring areas. You'll notice my opponent hasn't once been near my home objective yet. So that bit of it is working out okay, just the kills have been a bit more than I was hoping for. You can also see the long strikes, I think, are all dead at this stage. So what I did was, I believe, let me see, is there a picture of them? So they were here. I don't think they're there anymore, because I believe I put them around here somewhere so I could shoot Alarielle, and then I think with her shooting attack, I think it was a covering fire that she used on them and just killed the whole unit. It was something like that, or it was a spell, but either way they ended up getting killed horribly, so that didn't work out too well either. So Alarielle is going to be steaming towards me now, as are the Kurnoths. I redeploy the Relictor, I think. Do I redeploy it a little bit to get out of the way? Maybe. Either way, Alarielle gets in to the Vigilors and beats them up, and the Kurnoths get into the Questors, who are going to have a good slugfest. All out defense, so I like the Questors' chances on their objectives. They get the 5+ ward save. Vigilors get killed. Battle tactics successful. And the Seekers and the Liberators are having a bit of a fight as well. So it's not looking great on numbers, and the enemy are starting to invade my objectives, but this one's still pretty solid for the stores. My opponent scores 7 points, so still looking okay scoring-wise. And I get to go first in round 4 with the priority, so I go for Slay the Entourage. And I'm going to try and slay this unit right here. So I bring down 3 Paladors, shoot, charge them in, fight with the Questors as well. The Liberators fight the Revenant Seekers. There we go. So you can see that I do not manage to kill those Kurnoths, despite there being, I think there were 4 Questors at the start, 3 Paladors, all fighting 2 Kurnoths. One of them survives against the odds. So how many wounds was it remaining on that one? I'm not sure if my opponent was counting up or down on the wounds, so it might just be 1 wound left. So that denies me a tactic. So I just score 3 points for a side objective and my home objective, so that is a bit of a turning point there. Because obviously there are other tactics that I could have done at this stage, but I felt that was quite an easy one. But it did not work out that way. My opponent's turn coming up then. So, take their land, very easy. And you can see this fight is going on still. Alarielle has a purple sun in her sights. And another Questor goes down. You can see that there's a manifestation here as well that's trying to get involved. More Questors going down from... I think they're getting shot a lot by the Kurnoths. And ultimately they do go down because we see the return of the Warsong Revenant who comes back, joins in. Questors are dead. And the Liberators are still doing well, holding up the Revenant Seekers though. Also, what I should have been doing this whole time with the Liberators is piling them in to try and sneak round the other side of the Seekers, because it would then put me in a position for things like take their land later on. As it stands, because I've not been piling in. So it's something to think about. Then there's another example in a later game as well that proves to be quite important. Even if you think you don't need to pile in, always think about piling in. Always look for that sneaky bit of extra movement. Because there's probably somewhere you would think, where would you like to go if the combat eventually ends? So why not try and get yourself closer to that point? Even if the combat doesn't end, you've not cost yourself anything other than a few seconds of moving them. So remember to pile in. Purple Sun is down as well. So it's not looking great. Got 2 Paladors, the Wizard, and some Liberators. And my opponent scores 9 points on that turn. Only lacking my home objective, which is the only saving grace now. And my opponent gets to go first in round 5. So this is obviously quite a dilemma, because if you take the double, of course, you can't get a battle tactic. So, let's talk about the decision making here. So if the Sylvaneth had not taken the double turn, then there are battle tactics I could do. And I would also be able to get this objective, I think. Because the Paladors could have got out of combat. They can just retreat. There's 4 wounds left on this one, so they couldn't die from that. They'd get round here. I think they'd be able to reach this objective with a retreat move round the side of this building. Which then means you're left thinking about redeploying 2 Kurnoth archers on there, who I could just charge and then possibly kill. So I think taking the double prevents this from happening, because I think the Paladors probably get killed now. And that leaves me very few units to score with. Also, Alarielle will almost certainly take this objective off the Knight Arcanum, who bought himself 1 turn by putting a purple sun in front of her, but that has now departed. So turn 5, Sylvaneth. Alarielle cannot quite reach the objective with a move, and the Knight Arcanum redeploys 1 inch away from her, so I don't like his chances. The Liberators start beating up the Revenant Seekers, actually, and then I do think about piling in now, because I'm thinking about tactics. So piling in, just trying to get round it slowly. Alarielle and the Warsong Revenant do get into the Knight Arcanum. And the Paladors do get killed as well, sadly. There's shooting here, and spells, and all kinds of horrible things. So the Knight Arcanum is dead. I'm down to a unit of Liberators. And I'm down on the scores. My opponent scores the maximum for that round without a battle tactic for the double, and that's 6. So, I determine there's only one thing I can do. I still have to take their land. I can't physically reach an objective, because this one's too far away. I have to retreat with the Liberators, or make a pile-in move around the Revenant Seeker to get to this piece of terrain to take the enemy's land. And the amount of Liberators that can get to within 3 of it, my opponent could also pile in and contest that, and have just as much control as I do. So, I have to pile in the Liberators and kill the Revenant Seeker in order to take this bit of land for a battle tactic. Which is going to be tricky, but Liberators, with those mortal wounds they can do, they're not actually the worst fighting unit in the world. So that's the only thing I can do, because I can't retreat and charge, I can't retreat and run, so I can't get onto any of the objectives. So I just have to do a battle tactic which would bring it to a draw, which is the best I can do from this point now. If you see anything else on the table that I'm not spotting, then let me know if you have come up with something. So, my turn 5. Take their land. Let's see what happens. Well, wouldn't you know it, the finest our liberators uppercut the Revenant Seeker, take the enemy's land, score 4 points, and get a draw. Woo! So, it's a draw. It was starting out quite well, the game. I think my game plan was reasonably executed. There were a couple of units that needlessly got themselves killed, though, which tipped the odds into the Sylvaneth favour, and I didn't finish off a lot of units, as you can see. One came back to life, and the 2 Kurnoth units are actually still alive, despite me throwing lots of resources at them. So maybe I should have thrown everything I had into this area. Let the Questors worry about the Revenant up at the top, and sent the Paladors along with the Stardrake into the big unit of Kurnoths. That could have all gone horribly wrong, though, and I would have had everything committed in this one spot. But maybe that would have helped. And let me know if you saw anything in any of those turns that you would have done differently. Any tactical insight. So, on the back of a draw into round 2, and it's Scorched Earth. So, 4 objectives on each side, and you can potentially delete the ones on your opponent's half of the table if you are contesting and controlling them. And I'm up against a wall of 2+ armor saves. So let me pull up this list now, because this is Khorne. The Blades of Khorne. And I've played against this army before. I had a different list though. And with all those 2+ saves on the Juggernauts, it is pretty tricky to get through that if you only have mediocre rend. Most of my army is rend 1. The Long Strikes and the Stardrake can do some rend 2. I can also get the Purple Sun, which is going to help with that as well. And what else? I don't have Krondis, who has access to the -1 armor saves spell, which would be very handy. And also some of his attacks being rend 2 would be good as well. Karazai has a lot of rend 2. There are 2 Bloodthirsters as well, so this is going to be tricky. However, there are also lots of objectives, so maybe they'll end up spreading out a bit. I don't even know if they need to be together though, because each one of these units of 6 are so tough that you can send one of them to a place and they'll probably just live and survive there. So let's see what we've got in here then. We've got 2 Bloodthirsters, an orange one and a white one. So one of them is Wrath of Khorne Bloodthirster, and then there's a Bloodthirster of Unfettered Fury. And I can't remember which one is which. Then there is Argath, the King of Blades, who is that the... That's an ability, isn't it? Or is that the magic sword or something? Yes, so that's on the Bloodthirster of Unfettered Fury. And the Wrath of Khorne Bloodthirster is the general. Then there's 2 units of Reinforced Mighty Skull Crushers. And if we go back, you can see some of them are the old metal Juggernauts. Very nice. I think these look much cooler than the new ones. I think the new ones are a bit too sleek for a Juggernaut. These old ones are definitely where I would go in the Juggernaut realm. And then there's another unit of just 3 out on the right there. Also, very nice classic Juggernauts. Does anyone agree with that? Anyone out there think that the new ones look better? Because I think the old ones are much cooler. So, in the sky, I've got the Liberators, because there's loads of objectives that are really far apart. I want to be able to drop down on one and choose when I do that. And then all my shooting in the sky again. I have put everything down on this flank. The reason is, those 3 things there are all very hard hitting. I would rather face this army 1 unit at a time and just try and completely kill something 1 at a time. So I'm deploying as far away from half of the army as possible. So, they could just steam straight towards me, but they're not going to be able to charge me turn 1, which Bloodthirsters could potentially do. And it also means that if I am made to go first, because I think this is a 1-drop, then I can go forward and kill maybe one of these units without having to deal with anything else yet. So that's why I've kind of packed everything to one side away from this. So even if the Bloodthirsters come over, and I'm kind of surrounded in this small area, then that's less of a concern because I haven't been hit turn 1. And I have also got multiple ways to teleport units from this area, which would... And if the enemy are trying to surround me down here, I could teleport 2 things at a time over there, and if they're abandoning this area, I could drop down Liberators over here on an objective. I've quest marked this one, thinking the Bloodthirsters aren't going to possibly stay there for very long, so I'm going to be able to teleport onto that. So, draw them into this area, perhaps, and then kind of teleport over them onto objectives, so that when they rush in here to kill whatever's here, I'm already everywhere else. Because I don't want, for example, 1 unit of Juggernauts here, 1 of them here, because wherever I go, they're a threat, and they've got good control score, and they're very tough, and I'm not going to win just a straight up fight against them, probably, with the Bloodthirsters backing them up. So, if anything, I want everything over here, so I can jump over it, or, if they do stay over there, countering that idea, then because I've got everyone packed together, I'll then focus in on one of these 2. That is the plan. We'll see if it makes any sense in practice. Into... Oh, look at those over-the-shoulder cinematic shots from the Stardrake. And the Questors. My opponent chooses to go first and seize the centre. What a surprise. Who could have seen seize the centre coming from an army that wants to run straight towards you and kill you? So, one thing I'm wary of against Khorne is if I want to fight them, I can't rely on charge bonuses, because Khorne don't necessarily let you charge them. Because for 1 Blood Tithe point, they can move 3 inches, which can put them into combat. They can also combine that with a redeploy, which means if you go 3 inches away from them ready to charge them, then they can just murder lust right into you, so that you then can't charge them because you're already in combat, so you won't get charge bonuses. If you think, okay, I'll play it safe, just in case you redeploy and murder lust into me to get rid of my charge bonus, I'll go, let's say, 9 inches away from you. First of all, that's a difficult charge. But then also, they could say, well, actually, I'm going to redeploy away from you instead, and now you can't charge me at all. So you can't rely on getting charge bonuses against Khorne. So, that's going to be tricky. So I'm just mostly going to forget trying to get charge bonuses at all. Don't think about it too much, just try and get into combat. My units are pretty good at combat, so we'll see. And try and focus down on 1 unit at a time rather than spreading myself too thin, because these units are very tough to crack. On the other hand, there is something to be said for spreading out the attacks somewhat, because only 1 unit can all-out defense. So, it's tough. So, my Knight Relictor has banked 3 prayer points this turn, saving that up so I can do some teleporting on the enemy turn, hopefully, which could deny a battle tactic. So you can see they're kind of spread out, and they're set up so that I can't teleport onto any of their back objectives yet, which is obviously a good move. It does mean that this unit of 3 are primed to be killed, so that's probably what I'm going to try and do. If I hit something, I want it to die. And limit the number of enemy units, because there's only 5 of them to begin with, so each one I kill is less areas on the battlefield they can contest. So I just want to kill something each time I go in. Go all in, try and murder something. So my opponent gets 10, scoring loads of objectives and seizing the centre. I go for Reclaim the Realms. So I'm going to spread out my units onto objectives now, and get 1 unit in each table quarter. So we've got the Liberators in the bottom left, the Paladors and the Stardrake get into the unit of 3 of the Skull Crushers, and you'll see why one of them's alive in a moment when I go into that. The Relictor teleported into the corner for the battle tactic, and so here's what happened. The Stardrake and the Paladors got in. The Stardrake, well actually they didn't charge in, because I moved towards the enemy, and then the Skull Crushers decided, actually, let's just move into you instead of you having a charge bonus. Now, I can understand definite logic behind that. On the other hand, the other option was to stay where they were, let me charge them, and then countercharge with these guys. So I think if I had to go up, let's have a look where they were. So if I had to go up here, over that bit of terrain. I think that technically would take me closer to them. As you can see, where we are actually fighting is on the edge of this terrain, whereas it's like here. So if I had to charge them, we would have to go forward a little bit further, which would bring them closer for a counter charge. So that might be something to think about as well. So what happened was, why is the one alive? The Stardrake, with its ability to eat models, rolled the dice, ate one, and the one it ate then took it out of combat, which is normally fine. But I'd overlooked the fact that actually, because it didn't technically charge, it now can't pile in. So it's not going to be able to attack the remaining ones. Because it's eaten one of them, it's outside of 3 inches, and it didn't technically charge because the enemy just moved into combat instead with their bizarre Khorne ability. It's actually more Khorne-like than it used to be, I think. The Khorne rules have been improved slightly, but they're still not necessarily the Khorniest. I think you should definitely get rewarded for charging and fighting and killing. I just think they should be less about shenanigans. I think it should be less about entirely new mechanics. And it should be more about them leaning heavily into the mechanics that suit their playstyle. For example, an ability to let them countercharge with multiple units would be a good reward, rather than just letting them do an out-of-sequence move, if that makes sense. So without messing with the game mechanics too much, you still give them something very thematic. Or if you're going to let them move, make sure it has to be like towards the enemy, rather than the way you can potentially shenanigan it is to move away from the enemy with these things. So I think it still needs work, but it's definitely better than last edition, I think, the theme of the Khorne rules. So the Stardrake then wasn't able to join in with the rest of its attacks, and the Paladors didn't do very well, because they do a lot of their damage when they shoot and when they charge and shoot. So they also didn't manage to crack through that armour very well. But I thought because it was a unit of 3, that wouldn't matter, and that I wouldn't need the charge bonuses, but then the fact that the Stardrake wasn't able to pile in kind of messed with that. Because you can see one of them's still alive. So, I score 8 points because I'm not holding that many objectives yet. And my opponent gets the first crack at round 2, so we're about to see a lot of meat slapping into the Stormcast now. And goes for Slay the Entourage on the Stardrake. A very bold move because it's not been hurt yet and it's got its 5-up ward. Or has it? So, I also totally overlooked the fact that one of the Bloodthirsters has an ability where they just point at you and say, you know what, I don't think you're allowed to have a ward save, me old mate. So one of these Bloodthirsters can just point at you and say, you're not having a ward save. So I am now not very confident the Stardrake is going to live. Had I recalled that one of them could just point and deny the ward save, I would have been considerably less aggressive in my positioning, because with a 5+ ward, there's every chance the Stardrake could even survive all of these. With all that defense and a ward save, that would be an awful lot of attacks that might not even kill it. So you can see that my Questors, who are hanging out over here, they may well get attacks. Oh yeah, because I don't think they were in a photo, were they, the Questors? Because I teleported them up near their quest-marked objective in an effort to engage with these guys, because if you go back here, there they are, so they were in a photo. I wanted to tempt either a Bloodthirster or this unit of 6 to come back and fight them and not go over there, because I felt this entire army against this blob would not go my way. So if I could tempt 1 or 2, preferably a Bloodthirster and them, all to come back and fight the Questors, and then maybe I could get a cheeky redeploy onto the objective that they get a ward save on, then you never know. But unfortunately, and also if they just ignored the Questors, I would then do the redeploy onto the objective. So, 1 unit of Skull Crushers are going back to fight them. And in the resulting combat, only one of them is still alive, which is interesting because I can teleport out of combat with the Questors. The Stardrake, using its ability to fight first, as it should, does some damage to the orange Bloodthirster. And then you can see I have all-out defense as well. So, taking some damage, but not too much yet. And I've got around the other side to take a picture of this titanic duel between a Stardrake and two Bloodthirsters, with no ward save for me allowed whatsoever. There you go. Very wingy battle. The Paladors and the Skull Crushers are also continuing their brawl. This guy's just in a unit on his own, but these 6 have now got in to join in with the fight. And the Stardrake gets killed, so no ward save equal to death. I think that's fair to say. So I think I'll check in future. Whenever there's a Bloodthirster, I'll ask, is that the one that turns off ward saves? And if the answer is yes, I will drastically alter my strategy and try not to fight them at all, probably. Not even go near them. Or put down screens or something. Some kind of game plan that involves killing the Bloodthirster without it being able to punch me and turn off my ward saves. So at this stage, I would say it is definitely game over. It doesn't look necessarily like it, but there's a lot of enemies left, and they all have 2+ saves, and I don't have very good rend. So I don't see how I'm going to kill any of them. My only hope is to shenanigan my way to victory. You can see I've got my long strikes up in that corner as well. I've been chipping away at the enemy slowly, trying to, but I don't think it's going to be enough. So, 10 points for the enemy. Into my turn. Take the flanks. So, what I was saying there, pretty much, is I don't see how I'm going to stop the enemy scoring points. Because there's enough of them, and I don't have enough left, so I can keep scoring my points. But I can't do it in such a way that denies the enemy the ability to score, because they can just walk wherever they want and none of my units are capable of stopping them. So I think I'm going to score, but I'm also going to give away points a lot. So I go for take the flanks. I was already set up to do it. We've got long strikes there and the Knight Relictor. You can see I actually shoot down a couple of Skull Crushers there, so that's good for the long strikes. I've also teleported the Praetors using the teleport chamber up here. And yeah, so they're on an objective, so that's nice. If anyone wants to fight them, they'll have to come this way. And there we go, I get 8 points, so getting some good points there. The Paladors also retreated, because they don't want to just die in combat. And they didn't charge back in again, because that would be a silly idea. So, 8 points for me. In the enemy turn, Ordained Charge. So, this Chaos battle tactic is 2 friendly units charge, and 1 or more of those units are contesting a specific objective that you control. So, you can see there's going to be an orange Bloodthirster going after the Paladors that previously retreated, a white one going up to the top to go against the Praetors. Oh, by the way, I think we had a picture of me deleting the objective with the long strikes. Yeah, there we go. So once I deleted that objective, I was thinking the enemy would very much like to kill these long strikes, so why should I give them even more reason to do so? So my hope now is that they'll ignore the long strikes because there's no objective there, and then I can slowly bring them back into the game and start shooting things. Because if you go and attack them now, that means you're not taking an objective. So you can't get a 2-for-1 deal on them, basically. So here's another redeploy on the Praetors to get away from the White Bloodthirster. They also roll a 1, so 100% record on redeploying with a roll of 1 so far at this event. With covering fire, actually kill a couple more Skull Crushers with the long strikes. They're doing a really good job on these guys. It's very telling. The Rend 2 weapons do much more than all the Rend 1 weapons did against the Skull Crushers. So, the 1 Skull Crusher down here, and the Paladors and the orange Bloodthirster are still brawling away, and the big unit of 6 are chasing after the Knight Relictor in the corner. So, Praetors in combat. And who's going to die? Another Palador goes down, the Knight Relictor goes down, the Praetors go down, and the Palador, the last one, goes down. I've still got my Wizard down here. So what have I got left? Long strikes, and a Wizard, and some Liberators on this objective. And my opponent scores another 10. So as I said, I don't see how I stop just this big ball of murder from scoring points now. It's very tough. Dom says, interested to see how you do. That was a tough list. Yes, it was very tough. There's so many 2+ saves. I don't have enough mortal wound output in the army. Stormcast just don't have that much of it regardless. What would be good units for taking on a load of 2-up saves with Stormcast? So, you can take... Who does mortal wounds? Concussors do mortal wounds. They could be a good choice. And you just don't get as many of them for the points as you do Paladors, but the mortal wound output could be useful. Who else can do mortal wounds? Liberators can, but it's only on it's only one at a time. And they have to actually fight, which means you're striking with Liberators. It's usually not a unit you want to be hitting first with, because you want to pick something else to go first. So, I'm not sure I'd trust that. So, let me just pull up an army list now, and look at a couple of units here. So, Concussors would be good. Annihilators dropping down can do some mortal wounds. But if it's Grandhammers as well, they do have Rend 2, which is more significant. Krondys, I was saying, is very good because he can reduce enemy saves and maybe have a Purple Sun and has got Rend on his own attacks. Retributors can do mortal wounds, but they're about to get deleted in a couple of months' time. Who else can do any mortal wounds at all? Let's see. The Stormstrike Chariot could be interesting, actually. Because when you power through with that, you do bonus mortal wounds, and you could power through against Skull Crushers with a Chariot. And it's got a good number of wounds, so it could do a good job surviving against them for a round, and then powering through. It's going to cost you a command point, though. But that might be the one role I can think of for the Chariot now, because it's got a lot of competition at that kind of 140 point level. It's competing with other things in that general area, like Prosecutors, for example. Who else have we got at that level? Shield Annihilators, you can get 3 of those for 140 nowadays. So, Karazai would probably do a good job against these enemies with lots of Rend 2. But even then, if they're able to all-out defense, the fact that Krondys can actually shut down commands is really big as well, actually. So Krondys is maybe the best one for this job, because you've got multiple ways to stop, to debuff saves, and you've also got the ability to shut down commands with Krondys. So Krondys could be a good one. Karazai, probably good. Stardrake theoretically is good, because you can eat them. But one Stardrake isn't going to reliably eat that many of them when they've got 5 wounds each. So let me know which Stormcast units you think would be good against a big wall of 2+ saves. Into my turn, I go for attack on 2 fronts. Take 2 objectives. One of them has to have been controlled by the enemy, so the Liberators have been working their way onto this one here. And the Knight Arcanum teleports onto this objective here. So there's battle tactic. Not killing anything, but got a tactic. You can see also I've got my Vigilors here. I'm not sure if the Vigilors have actually been out the sky yet. They've just been hiding up in the sky the whole time. They may have been, because I didn't see a really good opportunity to bring them down yet, and I wanted units in reserve because there's objectives all over the place. You can see the Long Strikes and the Vigilors are actually doing a really good job on these Skull Crushers over there now. Let's see, Dom says Reclusians. Could be a good choice. I do have 3 of those I need to assemble and paint from the Skaven Tide starter box, so maybe they're a good choice for some good anti-armor output. Look at these opposing dice, enemy dice. Now, by the way, this is in no way my opponent's fault, but during the dice rolling in this game, I was able to read 0% of the dice, which I think is more to do with my eyes, because I'm sure I think I've got some kind of mild colour blindness, so that probably plays into it. And also with the glare of the lights and everything, on these red and black dice, I couldn't actually see what any of the dice said. But I think my opponent was trustworthy, so I decided, I'm not going to ask you to change your dice, I'll take your word for it. There were some other dice later in the tournament with the same issue as well. So if that's just personal to me, then I'm not going to go on a crusade to get people to change their dice, just because of me. And oh yeah, that was a rally. So that's a rally roll there. So you can see there's enough on the rally to bring back an entire Skull Crusher. Wow, wow, wow. Hungry Tom says Purple Sun. Yep, I've got Purple Sun in this list, but it's been difficult to get it where I want it. Because when you bring it in, and then on that turn, it's unlikely to make its charge on the turn it's deployed, if you will. So you want to get it out in advance. So maybe I need to have better use of my Purple Sun as well to get it where I need it. So, let's see. So that was my round 3. And then I get the opportunity to take the double. And I do it, because if I don't, I think my entire army dies immediately and I score no points ever again. So I take the double and see what I can score. Because I am on this objective, and this one, and this one. So I have got objectives. So I'm going to score some points. And there we go. 6 points. Because I think I still hold... Which other one? Maybe this one? So do manage to get some points there. And then I delete the objective the Vigilors are on, just because I know they're about to die. And I've also teleported my wizard up there as well, with the piece of terrain. So my opponent in round 4 goes for take their land, which is obviously going to be easy, just a piece of earth. And then the White Bloodthirster wants some Vigilors. And what's this? A redeploy. A redeploy that rolls a 1 again. So 100% record rolling a 1 on redeploys at this event so far. The Skull Crusher is going after the Long Strikes. I managed to kill another one with Covering Fire. So those 3 Long Strikes have done a really good job on killing Blood Crushers. Skull Crushers, not Blood Crushers. Which ones are Blood Crushers? Are they the ones where it's like a demon on top of the Juggernaut? Are they Blood Crushers? So either way, I'm thinking Long Strikes. Maybe I'm missing a trick by not bringing 2 units of 3. Because I think the unit of 6 is too much of a liability, because they're in one spot and they die. But maybe 2 units of 3, so the enemy can't just kill them all in one go. Maybe that would be the way to go for this kind of enemy. Because the 1 unit has done so much in this game that having a 2nd unit of them, I think would have made quite a difference here. Vigilors get killed by the White Bloodthirster. Long Strikes fighting a single Juggernaut there. And my opponent gets another 10. Round 5, I go for take their land, which I do, because I've got 3 Paladors back to life on this piece of terrain. And I put them in such a position so that the enemy would have had to countercharge like 10 inches to get to me. And even then there's no guarantee that they would get enough of them in range to still stop me taking their land. And it was such a high roll, probably not worth it. Especially when you're already going to win the game, you might as well save them and score some more points on your own turn. So the Long Strikes are dead now. But I do score 8 points because I'm holding some objectives and I get my battle tactic. So I'm able to score some good points in this game, as you can see, racking up good points even though I've been slaughtered all throughout. And then Chaos turn, do not waver, 2 units fight. So both Bloodthirsters into the Liberators, Juggernaut into the faction terrain, Juggernauts into the Paladors. So Liberators get killed, Palador survives, and there we go, another 10. So it's only a loss of, I think it's 10 points. When considering that my opponent got maximum points in every turn, and I didn't feel like there was anything I could do about it, I think that's pretty good, keeping the result down there and scoring that many points in defeat. So I can definitely live with that. I think it's a very, very tough list. It could have even been tougher for me if it had been one of the battle plans where the enemy can just sit everything in one small area. Because all those 2+ saves in one spot, I would just be splatting into a wall basically. And I wouldn't be able to do any shenanigans to score points later in the game. I would have been stuck with no points for the whole game if it had been a smaller area. So this was actually favourable, this scenario for me, against this enemy list. It just didn't work out. I wasn't able to kill off units. And overlooking certain critical rules, such as turning off ward saves. Not a good time for the Stormcast, but still respectable. Onto the Vice. So, this is where the objectives move in over the course of the game. Terrible for the questors, because they pick one of the objectives on turn 1, and then by turn 2, it's disappeared. So they don't like it. And I'm up against the Trolls. The Trogs of Doom. So let me crack open that list now. Here we go. So, you'll notice that I've got nothing around the centre of the table where this big wall of death is, and I'll explain the deployment when I've gone through the opposing list, because I do have a plan. It's very fiendish. So, let's look at some of the scary opposing stuff. We've got Trug, the Troggoth King, who is the general, with a Gobapalooza down here, a little wizard unit. A reinforced unit of Rockgut Troggoths, which I think are these ones. And a Snarlpack Cavalry unit, which are over here on the right. And these are new. And these are very cool models, actually. I can kind of see where people say they've got a bit of the old world about them. I guess these are the ones that are the new Gits that are slightly less Night Goblin-y. Because these, they do kind of look somewhere in between, don't they? Old world and AOS aesthetic, these guys. I don't think I've seen these models before, though. But I assume that's what they are. Some spells there off the table. We've also got, so that's one regiment. Then we've got a Dankhold Trogboss, which I think is represented by this delightful pink one here. And that is joined by a Dankhold Troggoth, which is this one, which is not a hero, which is important. Then there is a small unit of Fellwater Troggoths and another unit of Rockgut Troggoths. So I can't remember which one is in the General's Regiment, whether it's this one or the one out on the right flank, which is over here, that are not blue. And there is the Shrine. So the way the Bad Moon works now, it doesn't work in table quarters anymore. It's just everywhere, and it just has different effects over the course of the game. Much more simple, much less weird. And it's an example of not needlessly inventing game mechanics. Like I was saying about Khorne, where they could just use the existing mechanics and just be good at them in some way, rather than inventing totally new mechanics for every faction. So, turn 1 is going to me, and because my opponent is 2 drops, that means it was given to me. We'll see if I can make my opponent regret that choice, because, let me go back to the wide shot and tell you about my plan here. So, in the bottom right, I've got the questors next to the teleporter, so they can be teleported somewhere, and then still keep their own teleport for later on. And the reason to do this is so that if the situation demands it, you can teleport them somewhere with Finest Hour, which you can't do if they're in the sky. So often you'll see prosecutors hanging out next to the teleport chamber, because then they can be Finest Houred, teleported somewhere, make a 3-dice charge. They're quite likely to get in with the Finest Hour then. So you'll see prosecutors doing this quite often. Off the table, I've got the Praetors, because I'm planning on not being shot too much, because there isn't a lot of long-range shooting in the opposing army, so I don't have to keep my ward save handy immediately. Long Strikes, Vigilors, Liberators. And then, over here we've got the Paladors, who are trailing back to touch the corner objective, so I can score that at the start before it disappears, and the Stardrake next to them. When I see the deployment of... hold on, where were we? That's wide shot, here we go. So, this one unit of 6. They are obviously out there to touch the objective, and that will also double up as a way to prevent me from deep striking in units, like behind the enemy lines. So it's a valid thing to do, stretch onto the objective, while also screening out anything from getting into the big juicy stuff at the back. However, I see this as a target. Whether it's intentional bait, I don't know, but I'm thinking things are going to come back to life at half strength. It's going to happen. And I'm probably not going to get to the Loon Shrine because there's a lot of trolls in the way. So forget that. Just kill things once, and then when they come back, kill them again. Or, even better, knock something down to one model, and then try and get away from it. That would be the dream, because then it can't come back and it's just one troll. So, I am going to launch my Paladors across the table and try to murder these trolls. Drop down my shooting units there as well, start blasting them, try and do 1,000,000 wounds with shooting, charge in, do 1,000,000 more wounds, and just try and kill that unit, turn 1. I'm also... Oh, that would also possibly give me the objective as well, you never know. Which is like right in the corner there, so it's not quite the full template here. I'm going to teleport my Questors up where those 3 dogs are, and try and charge them with a 9-inch charge as well, and get onto their... That's actually their home objective up in the corner. The Questors' quest-marked objective. So they would actually be able to fight for it for 1 turn before it disappears. And they've got their own teleports, so they wouldn't be stuck there for the whole game. So that's what they want to do. So it's going to be quite aggressive, into the corners, away from the big wall. This is all the dangerous stuff. You've got Trug, you've got the 2 scary Dankhold Troggoth, and the Dankhold Trog boss. And 2 other units of trolls and the Gobbapalooza. So all the dangerous stuff in the middle. So I'm just going to try and focus on the flanks, bring them down, and see how it goes from there. Just kill as much as I can, as fast as possible, because they're going to come back anyway. And I have to rack up points early in the game, because if you look at this big wall of troll flesh that you may think I'll never get through, and they'll get to the middle, so for the last 2 turns I'm not going to score much, because that's going to be the only objective and there's going to be trolls on it. If these ones aren't on it, it'll be other trolls that have come back to life and appear there, and then they're straight on the objective. So I'm not going to score late game very much. So if I could get either of these objectives early and get some extra points, and then start killing things rapidly, that could give me the lead that I need. So let's see if that plan comes to fruition. So, I am given the first turn. I go for Reclaim the Realms, put something in each table quarter. The Questors teleport up there, as I said. The Liberators are just hanging out down here. For the battle tactic, I put the Vigilors in. The Stardrake's going up there with the Praetors as well, and the Knight Relics are going up there to try and knock one off the ward save of the Trogs. You can see that the Paladors do get in there as well, with Finest Hour, all out defense. So lots of attacks have gone in on the Trogs, but I haven't done quite as much damage as I would like, unfortunately. But I do score 8 points, because I've got my 2 corners. So had I either done really well in this combat here and killed more of them, or got the Questors into combat there, I think either one of those outcomes looks really good. Of course, I can't power through against trolls because we have the same wounds characteristic of 5, I believe. So, turn 1 for my opponent, who goes for Do Not Waver. 2 units fight, no units die. Should be fairly easy as long as you get these wolves out the way. So they're running away from the Questors. We've got a Scuttle Tide blocking off access to the Questors as well. Then Gobbapalooza are heading over in this direction, along with Trug, and these trolls as well. Trug gets into combat, the Gobbapalooza get in, but the other trolls do not. And the fighting continues here. The Paladors are losing models. These ones, I don't know whether they attempted to charge, actually. I think they're just descending on the middle. But if we look at this situation, I've got my Stardrake within striking distance now. If the Paladors don't die, then everything around there is going to be pinned in position. So the Stardrake can get in there with its strike first ability, potentially eat trolls or Gobbapalooza members, put attacks into Trug, shoot the Vigilors into Trug, get everything attacking Trug, bring the long strikes down to shoot Trug, then maybe I can wipe out this corner entirely. It's a long shot to kill everything in there, but if I could kill Trug, that would be great, because Trug cannot come back to life. So anytime you're up against an army that can bring back any unit except for specific ones, and you have the opportunity to kill one of those units, I usually try and take it. So, I get first go in round 2. We're currently tied. Take the flanks. Questor's already out there, so that's a nice easy one. And on the other side, you can see that I've killed more of the Troggoths. Stardrake's fully into the action now, with Finest Hour and all-out attack. Eating things, fighting things. The Paladors are still up. The Praetors have got in there as well. The Long Strikes drop down. Vigilors, loads of shooting. How many wounds is Trug left on? It's not many, I think. Trug is just about clinging to life against the onslaught of my powerful units there. So, again, the things get into combat. The elements of the plan kind of work, but just not quite enough damage output to kill off the target each time so far. So we'll see whether that comes back to bite me later on. But it does mean I score another 8. My opponent goes for take their land. And you'll see here that I have taken some wounds on my Knight Relictor. Was that there last time? Why have I got a picture of him? Someone must have shot him with something. Some kind of magic spell, maybe. Oh yeah, because the Stardrake takes some damage as well, so I think it was a spell that affects multiple units. And you'll notice that the Stardrake is dead. Or is it? No, it has teleported. So, and that's why there's a picture of the Knight Relictor, because I had a fiendish ploy. My opponent wanted to take this piece of land here. So I thought, wait a minute, I've got some prayer points saved up. Or, I think I did. Did I have 4 already? Yeah, so I just needed to not roll a 1, and then teleport the Stardrake into this position to block off the enemy from taking my land. Now, is this the right move? Because I'm now out of range of my ward save, and if we go back to a wide shot, without the Stardrake, this flank is looking a bit dodgy. However, the Stardrake was going to be attacked by those 3, probably these 6 trolls as well, and Trug, and the Gobbapalooza. So I feel like that's a lot. So even with a ward save, that is a lot of Trogs punching it in the face. So it could potentially die. And then these units around here are mostly shooty, and they're not going to wipe out all that stuff before it then kills me. So, teleport the Stardrake away, double whammy, keep it safe, and also deny this battle tactic. So that is what I choose to do. So translocate the Stardrake over here, and play the long game as well as the short game. Short-term gain of keeping the battle tactic from being completed, and the long-term gain keeping Stardrake alive and using it for other tasks later. This does still feel like an uphill struggle though, because I felt like I had to kill units early if I was going to have a chance in this game, because I think just this unit of 6 and maybe this guy, or this gal maybe, these trolls here hanging out on this objective at the last 2 turns, it's going to be very tough for me to deal with. So I think I needed to be killing things early to have a really good chance, but maybe we can shenanigan our way to getting up a good lead now. So here we go, teleported over there, and everything wants to attack the Questors. Nobody wants to fight the Stardrake. That's very sad, but not surprising. Trug gets into the long strikes. Trolls fighting Praetors. See, all the Paladors ultimately died, by the way, but I can bring back another 3 at some point now. Trug kills 1 long strike. The Questors lose a couple of models. Trug then kills the rest of the long strikes. And we've got 1 Praetor left up there, and the Knight Relictor is also dead. Questors are hanging in there, though, against this tide of enemies. And we've still got the Stardrake alive, so we've denied the tactic. But, so here's another thing to consider. Do you think the Stardrake being over here would have baited more enemy units over to the left and thus opened up the centre a bit? Would I have even had the resources to plant anything on the centre, though, to defend late game? Because I think the Stardrake probably would have died to all this. It's a really tough one. I think this particular mission is very difficult for an army that wants to bounce around and kind of shenanigan victory points without necessarily getting into a a whole game long slugfest, because those last 2 turns are killer because you can't deal with just this one objective. Turn 3 for me, I go for Slay the Entourage. In the enemy general's regiment, I select these doggos, so I just need to kill them for a battle tactic, which the Stardrake is going to have a good go at. Also, finest out of the quest doors. I've also brought on some Liberators, towing on an objective as well, which is going to get me some more points. And shooting away, blasting away at the enemy, trying to do some more damage over there. 3 Paladors come back within striking distance of the centre. So I don't throw them straight into combat, just holding them back, because I will want to converge on this centre in a minute when it's worth points. So they can hopefully back up the Stardrake. Stardrake does kill the doggos. The trolls do manage to finish off the quest doors though, which is sad, and the last Praetor goes down as well. So what I've got on the table is what I'm going to end with. I also haven't really been finishing off the troll units particularly, so they can't bring any of them back yet, which is one way of looking at it. Scuttletide on the Stardrake does a little bit of damage. And so a 10-point turn for me, so a nice big score there. So I've got a bit of a lead built up after denying that battle tactic. So my opponent goes for Seize the Centre, which should be pretty easy. And runs away from the Stardrake towards the Liberators. And this is where it starts to get tricky now, because this is the only objective, and I don't see myself scoring a lot of points for the rest of the game now, so we'll see if I've built up enough of a lead. Trolls into the Vigilors on the left, and you can see the various buffs. I can't necessarily work out what they mean, but they are definitely there. So Seize the Centre is accomplished, 8 points. Should that be 8? Should it be 10 points, that one? Oh no, because it's only round 3, I see. Yeah, so that objective isn't active yet. So it's about to be. Yeah. So in round 4 it will be. So I go first in round 4, take their land. There's a bit of land easily taken there. So I decide, if we look at this wide shot before round 4, there's no point, the Scuttletide's there, there's no point splattering the Paladors into these trolls and just dying on their own. So what I'm going to do is try and score points without engaging the centre too much at all. Because as soon as I go to the centre, whoever does will die, because I've got no real ward saves at the moment. I can activate a ward save for the Stardrake when a unit dies, but that's not every turn. So for the rest of the game, not necessarily reliable. And even if I have a ward save, Trug, all these trolls, and the Trog boss, and the loon, not the loon, the, what are they called again? Why did I close the page? You know the ones I mean. Gobberpalooza, there you go. Sounds a bit like loon. So all those units combined, I think, would kill me, and then I would have nothing left to do anything with the last couple of turns. So instead I'm going to try and skate around and just ignore the middle and hope that it's just about enough, and hope that my opponent can't do some battle tactics maybe. So I'm going to try and take some land, kill the trolls, and there we go. You can see some fresh wolves have come back around the objective as well. Stardrake manages to kill the Dankhold Troggoth, I think, but not the last Fellwater. Vigilors are down. If I get 4 points, I can live with that, just trying to rack up as many points as possible each time now. My opponent goes for take the flanks, which the doggos do over there. And then on the other side, there's the unit of trolls that were just hanging out there. Everyone else just moves away from the Stardrake just to provide more of a blockage. And 10 points for the enemies. This is where the Trogs are going to start racking up points. By round 5, do not waver, just need to fight, so I'm going to try and charge the faction terrain, get some points that way. And I do get that. I get them in there. And then my opponent's turn, time to get stuck in. So 3 friendly units, they're not in combat. And in this turn, each of the units is outside your territory and use the fight ability. So they just want to go and punch my faction terrain now to get a battle tactic. And obviously I'm not doing anything about this. My opponent manages to score, I think, 6 points in that turn rather than 10. And the lack of battle tactic is because, let's see, who else didn't get to use a fight action? I just don't think enough units were around to do it. But the battle tactics were getting tricky, which is what I was hoping for the last couple of turns. My opponent would start running out of them that were available, while having so many resources dedicated to the centre. But alas, it was not quite enough. And let me tell you, I'll give you the final score at that point as well. So, what round were we at? We were in round 3, so it was only a 2-point loss there. So, razor close, and the tactics almost worked out. You can see, just look at the numbers, you can see that it was kind of working, building up good scores early in the game, and then I was able to get that one really good turn of shutting down the enemy battle tactic, and then knowing I was going to be giving away points later on in the game, so just trying to score little bits where I could without engaging in the centre, hoping that my opponent wouldn't have enough battle tactics, but sadly it wasn't quite enough. Down by 2 points. So I think that's a very tricky scenario for my army. I think especially against an army that is way more resilient than mine and can come back from the dead a lot more easily than mine. So I think that's an acceptable result. On to the Jaws of Gallet. What's this? Another scenario with unfavourable conditions, and by that I mean I don't know if I've ever won this scenario ever. Definitely not at a tournament. So this is the one where if you're the underdog, you just delete one of the objectives. And that is very bad for me, because the idea of building up a lead and then slowly getting ground down by the enemy doesn't work, because you make your opponent the underdog and they just spend the whole game deleting objectives until the end, when they're just fighting over a couple of objectives and they've got big walls of meat on them and you can't do anything about them. You don't have objectives off in the corners that you can just teleport onto because they've all been deleted by that point. So that tactic doesn't really work. Also, the quest-marked objective for the questors can get deleted at some point as well, so not ideal for them. So you've got the choice of, do you pick the middle one as the quest-marked objective, because then if they go on it, if that gets deleted, they can still get to one of the others fairly easily, it's not that far away. Or do you pick one as kind of a bluff, a double bluff, pick one that you want your opponent to delete. So if you pick the one that's right in their territory between their whole army and then teleport onto it, thinking they might delete it, that's actually an objective that they were in a good position to take at some point. So maybe that's something to consider as well. We've got, oh, in the chat, Dom says, was a great game, the Stardrake teleport made it a game. Great play. It certainly did make the score very close. And just 2 points, which is pretty much entirely down to the Stardrake doing that, because without blocking off one battle tactic, the score was not going to be that close going into the final round. Because the last 2 turns were always going to be pretty much nothing for the Stormcast, just trying to weasel a couple of battle tactics with the big wall of trolls in the middle. And I so far haven't put together a Stormcast list that I feel confident can just sit somewhere and absorb at the same rate the enemy can. Perhaps that kind of list can be built, and it's been heading that way because the Paladors have a lot of wounds, the Questors have pretty good value for their wounds as well, and then taking a dragon with a ward save. So those 3 things are actually fairly resilient. But when you compare them to some of the stuff that enemies can put out, and some of the factions that can return lots of their units over the course of the game, then it doesn't quite stack up that way. And some of the other units are way more fragile as well, like the long strikes. You don't get a lot of wounds for the points with them. The long strikes are actually the worst value in terms of wounds per point. What else in the game do you get less wounds per point than long strikes? Let me know if you can think of anything. Not that they're bad, by the way. So, in this battle, we are up against the almighty Nurgle. So, let me pull up the Nurgle list here. The good old maggotkin of Nurgle. So, we've got... Let's see if we can find everybody here. So I think this is the general. I've got better pictures of all the armies later, by the way. After this game, in fact, there'll be some good pictures of the armies. So we've got the Glopkin, 510 points of general goodness, with a Lord of Blights, who appears to be hanging out down there. Then that is the entire General's regiment, so not giving away Slay the Entourage too easily, you would think. There is Bloab Rotspawned, who is represented by this nice conversion, which is one of the Cruel Boys creatures with a big arm on it. I'm not sure what the arm is from. And in that regiment, there is a reinforced unit of Putrid Blight Kings, and a second reinforced regiment of Putrid Blight Kings. So Blight Kings, they've got a decent number of wounds, very resilient and tough, and they can dish out some pain as well. So they're one of the units that I usually see on the table and think, uh-oh, how am I going to get through that? Especially when they're reinforced to 10. So very scary. Then there is another regiment which contains Guttrot Spume, who is Guttrot Spume on the table at this stage? I cannot see if Guttrot Spume is on the table. There's the Feculent Gnarlmaw. Is this Guttrot Spume? 160 point character, and then the Rotmire Creed, which are these fellas here. So they're hanging out off the table for now. Turn 1. And it goes to me. We're both 3 drops. So I think I am given the first turn. So what do I do with it? I'm not going to attack the enemy, because I don't think 6 Paladors are going to chew through 10 Putrid Blight Kings in one go, and I think they'll just get ground down. So I really want to be avoiding fighting the enemy as much as possible. And if we actually go back to the wide shot here, you'll notice I'm not deployed on any of the objectives, and neither is my opponent. So this scenario, I think, probably needs to go, or be changed drastically, because the underdog bonus is just too good. It's the only scenario where people really intentionally want the enemy to be in front, so they can become the underdog, because the bonus is so good, just deleting objectives. So for the mid and late game, then you can score big. So you take the small hit early on. So if you get to go second on this scenario, you see whatever your opponent scores, and then you just score 2 less. So it's not too much of a drop. It's only 2 points to make up later, but you are the underdog, so you can start deleting objectives. So I think they need to change it. But as it is, because I know my opponent can just score 2 less than me and become the underdog, your dilemma is, do you score 10, then your opponent scores 8, and they're the underdog, and it's just a 2-point gap, or do you think, actually, I'm going to not score very many points at all and see if you still want to take the lead, or see if you want to let me be the underdog? And how about if I score like 4 or 6 points and see what you do about that? And then your opponent then has to decide, is it a big enough of a lead that they'll have over your score that they can carry that through the game to win and make you the underdog? For example, if you score 0 or 2, they may well just think, okay, I'll have 10 then. And that's a nice juicy big lead there, so it doesn't matter if you delete objectives, because I'm probably still going to score enough to keep that lead intact over the course of the game. If you score 6, I feel like 6 is the sweet spot, because it's tempting. You're dangling it out there to them. 4 or 6, you're dangling it out there. You can have a 4 to 6 point lead here if you score 10, but I'm going to be the underdog. It's not like an 8 or 10 point lead, so it is possible for you to turn it round quite easily with the underdog bonus that you're going to have for at least a turn or 2. So, what is the sweet spot? if you're going second, what do you want the gap to be before you make your opponent the underdog? If you're going first, what do you think the sweet amount of points to get a score is? I think 4 or 6 is the best, because it's tempting the opposition slightly to maybe think they can go for the 10 and get a lead. And if they underscore you by 2, you just have to live with that, because they could do that anyway. Unless you went for 0 and then you're definitely the underdog if they score anything. And if they don't want you to be the underdog, they also have to get 0. Or more likely, they'll probably just take the 10 and think, okay, make up 10 points over the course of the game. Good luck. So it's a really tricky one. I want to hear what people think about that, though, because obviously I know what I think about it, and that's not necessarily the way to win, because I always lose on this one. Maybe it's just my army, though. It's not built for it. So what I'm going to do is advance on the enemy, but not too fast. The Stardrake can be quite bold, though, so I'm going to put it on one objective over here with its ward save hanging out there, because I've got strike first and I've got a ward save. If the enemy want to come in, I may well eat 3 Blight Kings before they get to strike anyway, and then kill some more with the attacks. The Paladors have no reason whatsoever to get into the enemy's threat range, because they could move 20 inches and still charge. So, there's no reason to put them near the enemy yet, so they're going to hang back. And I don't need to be on too many objectives. I don't necessarily need to do a battle tactic at this stage. I can save one for later. So I think I just score this objective in turn 1, which gives me 4 points, because I hold 1 and I hold more than the enemy. So 4 points, tempting the enemy to maybe take the 10 and make me the underdog. I think it's a strong temptation if you score 4 points. Is it going to be strong enough? Let's find out. So, in the sky, you can see, by the way, that I've got the usual suspects, the shooting units and the liberators. And turn 1, so I move on to the objective with the Stardrake and his buddies, the Praetors. Everyone else is just hanging out, racking up prayer points. And the Paladors, not getting too close, don't want to be threatened yet. So, I score 4 points. My opponent goes for take their land. Now at this stage, I've got a dilemma, because I can teleport units in the enemy turn. I can try and shut down take their land, but do I want to? And my dilemma isn't entirely based on the land being taken either. It's also based on the enemy being able to land behind my lines. Do I want them to do that with these deep striking units? So it's 2 things I have to consider there. Do I want them in here for fighting reasons? Do I not want to be hit by them? Or do I want to get in there to deny them a battle tactic? Now, denying a battle tactic isn't always wise in the first round of this mission, because it's more likely that you'll actually end up giving away the underdog status. But ultimately, it's not really, because if my opponent wants to, then my opponent can take the lead regardless of whether I deny the battle tactic, I think. Yeah, because all you'd have to do is go on to 2 objectives. So you'd hold 1, hold 2, and hold more. So just touch 2 objectives and you can have the lead, regardless. So if you want the lead that badly, you're only going to be allowed a small one. And if I deny your battle tactic, you then have to decide whether you want the lead or not, or whether you're just going to settle for 2 points, for instance, and become the underdog. So, in the end, I decide I don't want these guys here hassling my Paladors, because the Paladors really like to charge, and they don't want to be pinned between enemy units. So, for example, if the Maggotkin get the double turn, I don't want the Blight Kings running down here towards me and not being able to redeploy backwards because there's enemies hanging out behind me, for example. So I decide I am going to try and deny the battle tactic and put the Knight Relictor hanging out there, so no take their land. Which means no take their land later in the game as well, which I think is quite a big deal, because that's a very easy one to score, so that one being gone is a big deal, even now. So I think if there's a possibility that you're not going to get your battle tactic in turn 1, particularly in this mission, I would either not pick one if you don't think you can do it, or pick one that's not very achievable even later. So they decide that they're going to pop up here instead from their deep strike. And you can see the jaws are up, the manifestation, and Blowab and these Blight Kings are heading towards the Stardrake. They have to decide whether they want to charge though, because if you do, the Stardrake's going to strike first and maybe eat some of them. And the shooting kills one Praetor. Now, if the shooting of Blowab had killed all the Praetors, then yes, charge the Stardrake, because it might strike first, but it doesn't have a ward save anymore, so it's probably worth it. What you don't want to do is be hit by the Stardrake on my turn when I can finest hour it, and also bring in shooting back up. So I think, actually, you probably want to hit the Stardrake regardless here. Even though it can strike first, I think you're still probably better off fighting it now and trying to do damage now before it gets those extra buffs and the extra backup. But I can understand why anyone would be hesitant to do so, because it is going to strike first, so depending what resources you have to put in there, it's definitely something to think about. I will out defense the Paladors against some shooting which is coming in from that unit at the top there, and they end up doing nothing at all. Which would have caused disease, which is bad because it's going to just be mortal wounds chipped throughout the game, so if you can cause disease early in the game, that's bad. And then you have to rally to get rid of it, generally. So, they decide not to charge. You can see the Maggotkin, what's he called? The Glotkin, there he is. He's just hanging out up there. So, 2 points scored by the enemy, deciding, you're not going to let me have my battle tactic? Well, what's the point trying to score 10? I'll just make myself the underdog then. You're not going to let me score 10. I'm not going to settle for just taking a small lead. I'm going to just give you a small lead and become the underdog. So maybe the dangling of the scoring 4 points was actually the right number, because my opponent clearly was tempted to try and get a battle tactic, so was perhaps tempted to try and take a big lead and make me the underdog, which I wouldn't have been too disappointed about. It would have been a 6-point lead, but I think with the ability to delete objectives from slow Blight Kings, so for example deleting this one, and the Paladors just running away and vacating that part of the table entirely, I think that would be quite an advantage for me going forward. So, I get the priority into round 2, and I go for Reclaim the Realms. I'm trying to do this one earlier with this army list. I've got lots of small units that aren't necessarily essential to be in combat each time. So early in the game, while they're all still alive, I try and get this battle tactic in, because later in the game, some of them might have died and I don't have the disposable units to do it. So the Liberators have dropped in there, the Wizard's hanging out there as well. The Vigilors drop down. The Stardrake then, finest hours, with the Vigilors shooting at the Blight Kings, gets in there to try and kill all of them, eats some of them, and then fights them quite well also. I've stayed out of the 3 of Blowab, because I don't want to fight everyone at once. The Questors have also teleported onto their favourite objective up there, which might get deleted at some point, but they can just teleport away from it, because they were teleported through the teleport chamber. And I've got a Purple Sun up, which tried to charge Blowab, but didn't make it. Over here, the Paladors burst in there, and they actually kind of regret their life choices. It was a bit of a miscalculation on my part, so I didn't actually realise necessarily what the makeup of these units was, because that guy's actually a separate unit, I think. So what I should have done, when I charged in, I should have put all my attacks into this guy and left like one other dude alive, because that would have let me then power through 14 inches away and kill the last guy with mortal wounds. But I can't power through away from this guy because he's actually got as many or more wounds than the Paladors do, as much health characteristic. So just a little miscalculation there from me, because it would have been nice to power through all the way down here, get away from the slow Blight Kings who then move towards me, I redeploy, and it's a tough charge for them to reach me then. So that was the goal, but I just didn't execute that properly. But you can see the idea. I haven't quite got the full hang of nailing the power throughs yet. So 10 points, because I do reclaim the realms, and at this point I just want to score. There's no point trying to get underdog status, just get on all the objectives. And you'll notice also that we've got Paladors out here who are very fast. we've got Questors there who can teleport, and we've got the Stardrake out here who's very fast. And we've got the Relictor out on the edge who can teleport. So I've not overly committed to a flank at all. The Liberators are slow, but if the enemy start vacating this area, then they can do things like take the flanks from this position. So all my fast units are the only ones, or the teleporting units are the ones that are out contesting in the outer areas, because objectives, once they start getting deleted, you have to get back to more central position. So happy with that turn mostly, apart from this situation. So the Paladors might end up getting charged by Blight Kings now, which isn't necessarily the worst, because it does tie up a very scary unit who might struggle to kill the Paladors quickly. We'll find out. So, into the opposing turn, my opponent goes for Slay the Entourage and chooses the 2 Praetors, which people often do, but then okay, so my opponent doesn't choose that, because after it was declared, I then realised, oh wait a minute, I know I haven't got command point tokens in front of me, but I forgot to refresh my command points when we entered a new turn, so I should actually have some. So, I then checked to make sure that was correct, and it was. So I then says to my opponent, okay, because you thought I had no command points left, so you can pick a different pick a different battle tactic, because you thought they were just going to be stuck there without being able to rally. So my opponent then chose take the flanks instead, which is a bit easier. So there's some Blight Kings there, there's Bloab, and on the other side, if we go to the wide shot, you can see there is... there's a Blight King there as well, and these guys can get in there, so they can take the flank. So... the Blight Kings actually move away from the Stardrake. And I was thinking not necessarily what I was expecting. What I was expecting is maybe Bloab to charge in, or Bloab to go and take the flanks from there. Because they just have to be alive. It doesn't matter if they're in combat for take the flanks. So the Blight Kings moving away isn't going to prevent the tactic being scored. But then Bloab doesn't charge into the Stardrake, and I've got 2 command points left. So I can actually countercharge into them, and possibly look at denying a tactic by denying take the flanks. Round here, the Paladors fighting the... what's his name? He's not a Blight King. He is he Gutrot Spume there? So the other Blight Kings are in position now to try and take this flank. And the Jaws get into the Liberators, the Blight Kings get into the Paladors, and you'll notice that Bloab has actually charged away to attack the Knight Relictor instead, which surprised me. I thought he was going to go for the Stardrake, so I couldn't countercharge the Blight Kings. I was then able to countercharge the Blight Kings for 2 command points, ate them, and left 1 alive. How cruel is that? So 1 Blight King left alive to score the battle tactic. And Glotkin is now fighting my Purple Sun as well, while on the middle objective. You can see, look at that. The Blight King, 2 wounds. You can see some... can you see any disease markers yet? Anyone got one yet? Someone must have. I think that's a disease token there. I don't know if it's on a unit yet, though. Okay, so you can see damage being dished out randomly on these units now. And yep, there's some disease. So we've got disease on the Stardrake now, so that's going to start taking wounds as well. Paladors take some wounds. And how confident am I at this stage? I've killed most of these Blight Kings down here. I think the Stardrake can take Bloab. The Questors are pretty tough as well, and they might end up fighting him. I've lost some of my teleport abilities. I've still got the Questors teleport. The Paladors against Blight Kings I'm not very confident over here. So, I'm going to try and just kill characters now. So in order to kill this one, I need to free up the Stardrake. So I'm going to have to shoot this guy down, this last Blight King. So, oh yeah, so at the end of that round, the Questor's favourite objective is deleted by my opponent, who is the underdog, and that is their right. So, if we look at the map there, you can see this one being deleted means the questors are now going to have to teleport somewhere else to participate, which is okay. They can live with that, but it just means they're never having their ward save ever again now. So, I do like the theme of the questors picking an objective, and while they're contesting it, they get a ward save. However, as you can see in a few of the scenarios where objectives can be deleted or just are deleted, it's not very good. It's quite weak. So, which other units in the game have heavily scenario-dependent abilities that are particularly weak in certain scenarios? Are there any more? There must be. It can't just be the questors. So let me know. That's one for the comments. Give me some examples of units that are really good in certain scenarios because of a specific ability which just doesn't work in others. Because there's going to be some units that have abilities tied to enemy objectives, for example, that are in enemy territory. And then there are going to be some scenarios that don't have a lot of objectives in an enemy territory, for instance. Something like that. Okay, so into round 3. I get the priority, so I go for take their land. I'm getting onto objectives with my wizard. I think I'm taking this piece of land here with the questors since they're already there. No point moving yet. The Vigilors shoot down the last Blight King successfully, allowing the Stardrake to shoot and then charge into Blowab, who also gets shot by the long strikes. Gets down to 1 wound. And I've got a fresh purple sun. Woo! Blowab being on 1 wound, and the Blight Kings do manage to finish off over on the left. They kill the remains of the Paladors and the remains of the Liberators, because there's 1 Palador over here, it looks like. And what's this? Command point for powering through against Blowab. Yes, so my understanding is you can power through against any unit that has a lower health characteristic than you. So a power through from the Stardrake takes the last wound. So, nice power through move there, Mr. Stardrake. We've got rid of Blowab. And everyone is diseased though, which is not very nice. So mortal wounds are being dished out willy-nilly. And then you can see... Oh yeah, so that's handy actually. I can actually read this one. So Field Sergeant on this guy. And what's going to happen next? Because we've got the Glotkin that we're probably going to have to fight at some point. A nice upside down shot of my points there, so I get 8 for that round. It's my opponent's turn. Slay the Entourage. Would like to slay the long strikes, I think, because they're right there, so they're the easiest ones. And I try and redeploy away, but I think this is the first redeploy all weekend where I didn't roll a 1. And I rolled a 4, I think, but it still made the charge into the Praetors and then is able to hit the long strikes without the Stardrake fighting. The Jaws are fighting my wizard and kill it, which is sad. And we're getting quite low on units on this side. So 10-point turn for Nurgle. So what am I going to do next if I get the turn? I'm just going to try and kill the Glotkin, throw everything at him, throw the Questors in there, the Stardrake, shoot him to death, try and just put everything into the Glotkin. I can bring a unit back to life as well to throw in there. And my opponent chooses not to delete any objectives this time. So, would you have deleted an objective in this situation? I currently hold this one, because a manifestation can't take it off me. So I hold this one, and that's it. I think my opponent holds all the others. Holds these 3, because the Glotkin is on there. So would you have deleted one of them, knowing full well that I have an army full of units that can do shenanigans? Questors have still got a teleport they can use, and I can bring a unit back to life. Would you delete an objective and try and force me into a smaller area, or would you keep them open so you can take them? So I go first in round 4, so that should be a 4 there. If I go for Do Not Waver, 2 units fight, no units die. So I could have done Slay the Entourage on the Glotkin, but I wasn't 100% confident I was going to kill it because it's a lot of wounds. So I thought 2 units fight, no units die is safer because these units have got ward saves against the Glotkin. And if you want the Glotkin to live, you're probably not going to be attacking the Praetors after the Stardrake hits you. There's probably something else that's more pressing. So we'll see. And it works out. The Stardrake, the Praetors, with Finest Hour on the Praetors, which made them actually quite effective. The Vigilors and the Paladors that came in, all those attacks combined managed to murder the Glotkin. So, success. But disease is chipping away at my units still. As you can see, these disease markers claim a Palador at the end. It's because my units are so close together that the disease then spreads between them as well. And the Questors teleport onto this objective up there. They don't mind the fact they're going to have to fight some Blight Kings because I want the points. So, 10-point turn. It's big. Into my opponent's turn. Attack on 2 fronts. So, take 2 objectives off me, basically. The Blightkin are going to take this one off the Questors. And the... what's this guy again? Lord of Blights. He's going to take this one. And more disease points. Or more disease causing damage, I think. So yeah, the Blight Kings decide that they are going to charge in. And they kill quite a few of the Questors, so they're settled in that corner now. And my opponent, after doing more disease damage, is surely going to delete an objective, and deletes this one that all my units are on, obviously. So 3 objectives left. So in my turn, I go for Seize the Centre, because we're getting very close to the end now. So I put the Palador. First of all, I rally one of those units as well. I think the Palador this turn, to get the disease off it, so it doesn't just die automatically. And then get within 3 of the centre with the Stardrake and the Palador. So yeah, you can see, seize the centre, so I do that. Questor gets killed, as you'd imagine, by the remaining Blight Kings. I've got the centre seized. I've got an objective. So that's okay. Everyone else is just spreading out to not die. So, what are we looking at going into the final turn for my opponent? Because I score 6 there for seizing the centre with that objective. My opponent needs to score a battle tactic. If my opponent only scores the objectives, then I win by 2 points. If my opponent scores a battle tactic, my opponent wins by 2 points. So, what battle tactic is selected? Offering of Carnage. Complete this battle tactic if 2 or more enemy units were destroyed this turn. So, look at this situation. We've got a Palador on 1 wound. We've got a Stardrake who is on 2 wounds. You could definitely kill both of them, but how are you going to go about it? So, let's have a look. You can see that the Stardrake rallies as well to get rid of the disease, because I don't want them just auto-dying to disease at the end of the turn, because that would satisfy the tactic as far as I'm aware. So, you can see that the Lord of Blights is heading towards them. So I'm going to redeploy one of them, because if they're too far apart, there's no way really for him to be in position to attack both of them. What can happen though is if one of the units becomes diseased and then explodes, then it can potentially spread the disease to another unit, which can then cause that unit to take wounds as well. It's complicated, but it's weird, and that's how it works, I think. So, I want to keep them as far apart as possible and limit the possibility of both units dying. So I'm going to redeploy the Palador, because if I redeploy the Stardrake, I don't have much space to go this way, whereas the Palador has space to go up that way directly away from the Stardrake. So if I roll like 2 or 3, even that is probably good enough to prevent both units from being attacked. So, what do you think I roll? Wow. So, out of all of the redeploys over the entire tournament, every single one was a 1, apart from one of them. What are the odds? So a redeploy of 1 means that both of them can now be attacked, so we could have a potential battle tactic. So Lord of Blights gets in there. Has to decide how to split the attacks, because you have to kill both of them. They're not next to each other, so there's not going to be some instant disease hopping going on. And I don't have any ward saves going on right now. And the attacks from the character, I think they do 3 damage each. So there's no way one of these units is being left alive if an attack gets through. I rend 1, and I've got no command points left now. So I'm going to be on a 4+ save with both of them. And you've got 4 attacks to spread between them. So, well, I had to make a save with the Palador. I had to make 1 save, or it may have been the Stardrake. One of the units had 1 save to make on a 4+, ultimately, to win the game. So a 50-50 dice roll to decide who wins. And I did not roll a 4+. So the unit died. So there you go. Nurgle win by 2 points. If I pass the save, I win by 2 points. So you can't get much closer than that. The final dice roll of the game, a 50-50 dice roll to decide who wins. And it goes to Nurgle. There you go. Nurgle win by 2 points. So I took pictures of the armies. And here is that Nurgle army in a bit more detail. You can see the eyeball on the Glotkin there. Very nice. Then the Sylvaneth. You can see there's a little dragonfly under there. I don't know if you can see it in this shot though. Very nice. Then we had some other Stormcast with Krondys and Ionis. Visibly Riley says, hot damn, what a finish to that Nurgle game. Yeah, you can't ask for more than that in a game, really, can you? You're murdering each other the whole time, and then the whole thing comes down to a single dice roll with a 50-50 chance. Very nice painting on these guys as well. Very cool, very different to my Stormcast, a very different feel. These are very light and mine are very dark, of course. Then we've got all those Juggernauts. Very cool. And we've got the Trogs. Also very stylish and gristly. And then, just because you put your army on a tray doesn't mean I'm not going to take a photo of it. So we've got some Skaven there. And then we've got some photos of the individual miniatures. So as TO, I was also responsible for getting the awards to be distributed, of course. So the best single miniature at the TSN events, Rob usually just picks that himself or gets someone else to do it if there's people other than him in the building that aren't involved in the tournament. So I decided I was going to send the pictures of the individual miniature entries, which each player was able to pick one of their own models, and send that into the TSN Arena Age of Sigmar group chat, and then get people to vote on it there. So we've got Chupa the Chosen, this Trog boss. Very cool, very fungusy, pustule-y sort of there. We've got this Bloodthirster, very orange, that gets bonus points from me immediately. We've got Alariel on the Beetle of Doom, and there's the Dragonfly, so you actually get a picture of it underneath. Got Krondys, very regal looking. Got my Stardrake, that was my entry. Just tried to pick a big, imposing, cool model. And then, this guy. And you can see, nice flesh highlighting going on here from the forces of Nurgle. And this rat abomination. And then for the Bone Reapers, I can't remember what this guy's name is. I think it's one of the characters though. You know what, I could just tell you what it's called. Let me pull that up now. Bone Reapers. So that is it Arkan? I think it could be. Yeah, I think it is. Yeah, Arkan the Black. Yeah, you see, I didn't even need to look it up. Okay, final round. Border War. So very similar to the first scenario that we played, except it's lengthways. No. Well. The arrow I just dragged across the screen was clearly lengthways, but the game is being played across the usual way. Why am I describing this so badly? So, in the other one, what's that one called? The one where you have an objective here and here, which are like the home objectives. On this one, it's switched, so that you have the big wide territory, and your home objective is inside those instead. Otherwise, I think it's exactly the same. It's probably got a different underdog bonus. And we're against the Bone Reapers, so I will have to open that army list after all. So, let's see what we've got here. Trying to open that army list. It's not even letting me do it. Okay, so I will go through it regardless. We've got some knights. Let's see if it lets me open it now. It's the Malarkey website, which is actually very good. And there we go, I've successfully got the list. Oh, I see what the problem is. It's because the full list I don't think is on there. It's just a very short version of the list, so it doesn't really tell you anything. Okay, so I can use my imagination. We've got some knights. We've got some infantry. We've got Archon. We've got even more knights. I think they're Morbeg knights, aren't they? And then we've got... What are the big guys with the wings called? I cannot remember their names right now. Someone will let me know. And we've got this, which I'm guessing is a warband. That's the small, diverse little unit that all the factions seem to have. So, upon hearing that the Bone Reapers can't bring things back to life, I'm feeling okay. But also, they're pretty tough. But also, vulnerable. What's vulnerable? 5 knights out there on their own. That sounds like something I can kill in the first turn. So I'm thinking... I think this is a lower drop army than me. So I may end up having to go first, which I don't mind because I'm going to blast Paladors over there and try and kill those knights. And just kill something that isn't coming back. Can't argue with that. It's out there on its own, and the Paladors will be safe over there. So let's give it a try. And then I'm not going to be too aggressive into all this horribleness here, because there's a lot of murder. I think their knights are better on the charge. There are 2 casters. The other wizard is here, but I can't remember that one's name either. So, of the usual suspects in the sky, of course, my plan to score is... If the enemy advance off their home objective, obviously I'd like to get on there, but otherwise I'm not going to be too wild about that. I'm going to mainly focus my efforts over... So you'll see where I put my quest marked objective anyway, shortly. So I'm made to go first, and I go for Reclaim the Realms. So I put this one as my quest marked objective out on the right. And I teleport my Knight Relictor into the corner, just to make sure I get my battle tactic, and the Paladors completely wipe the floor with those knights, and then I do a power through on the last one to finish it off and get them as far away from the enemy as possible. We've got Donut in the chat. Is that an unfamiliar name on this channel? Excellent event and cool video. Is this perhaps someone that attended the event then? Could well be. Lord of Blights was the highlight of my weekend when he split his attacks. Aha! Yeah, there we go. Sounds like someone who's got a vested interest in the Lord of Blights. So Captain Nurgle we've got in the chat there. So yes, it was an emotional dilemma deciding whether to split those attacks, and then managing to kill the Stardrake and the final Palador with those nerve jangling, nerve shattering armor saves that I had to make to decide the winner of the game. Okay, yes, Jake it is. And waving in emoji form, which is pretty much the only way you can wave from the chat. I could turn on my camera and wave at people, but I haven't really got myself an attractive background yet and a lighting setup. I do have the shelf next to me with all my trophies on it, I could go on camera if I want. The other thing is that I'd like to be close to the microphone while talking, which isn't the best posture to be in on camera either, because I'm kind of leaning forward towards the desk and very low down in my chair, so you don't even see all the trophies because I'm so low to the ground. So maybe I need to get a different microphone set up for live streaming so I can get on camera again. Because I used to do more on camera stuff, and I could probably do something with the background. And what's the point having all these wargaming trophies if people can never see them in the background? Not that there's that many Age of Sigmar trophies. I have got one first place from a doubles event for Age of Sigmar. Other than that, I've got a runner-up trophy over there and a few best painteds. I've got way more for Kings of War, because I've been playing that for longer. I've got like 2 full shelves of Kings of War trophies, and then just a little crevice for Age of Sigmar in the corner. Okay, moving on. Liberators in the corner, so we're going to get the Reclaim the Realms very early, very easy. And the Purple Sun, just to get it out there. See if it manages to get anyone next time, or tempts them to charge it instead of my other units. 7 points. My opponent goes for Take Their Land, and gets the big scratchy manifestation out. And you can see there are some buffs being sent out there as well. And these 4 fellas look like they want to go and attack the Stardrake. We'll see how wise that is in a minute. But then so does Arkan, wants to get in there as well. Stardrake, I do a bit of a redeploy, get a 4, so that's actually quite good for this event. But there is the Praetor unit there as well, so it's going to be not that difficult to charge. They do make it in, and then Arkan rolls a 12 on his charge as well, so he also gets in. And there is the little warband hanging out over on the side there to take my bit of land, and there's not enough of them in range of it to fight to actually threaten killing it, which is good for them. Visibly Riley says, had to look up those winged nasties. Morghast, that's the one, Morghasts. Okay. And would you look at that? The Stardrake eats one of them. They have 6 wounds each, and the Stardrake rolled a 6 and just ate one of them before the combat even starts. So that is a big bonus, because the damage output that one of them can do is so significant that losing one of them is actually a huge loss to the unit. So then the Stardrake, after the round of attacks from them, gets down to 5 wounds. So, one more of them could possibly have been enough to kill it. The Stardrake did really well on his saves in this round. It can't be denied. The big unit of knights decide to fight the sun, which is always funny, and they get rid of it. And my faction terrain takes a couple of wounds. So, I don't mind this at all, the way this is looking, because if we look at this big unit of Paladors here, that is a big threat. I think I can kill Arkan. I think he's going down this turn. I think the Paladors are going to get in there, and I think I'm going to whoop him. I'm going to bring in my shooting in these woods as well and start blasting. And then hopefully the Stardrake can eat another one of the Morghasts. And maybe I can kill them as well. Because if I could kill them, both those units, clear out this area, I think that's just a win then. I don't see any way back for the Bone Reapers from that point. There's a unit of 10 knights that are really far away, and then a unit of infantry that aren't very good, and 1 spellcaster. So I think that would be game over if I can clear out this area. But let's see if I even get to go next. 10 points for the enemy. I do get to go next. Slay the entourage. Let's just kill Arkan. And there he is, he's dead. So the Paladors get right up to Arkan, throw their javelins at him. I shoot him with Vigilors and long strikes, murder him utterly. Then the Paladors roll a 4 for their charge. I think they needed about 6 or 7 to reach the Mortarks. They then re-rolled it and rolled 4 again. Wow, so the Paladors do not make it into combat with the Mortarks, which means that they end up killing the Stardrake. Stardrake does not successfully murder them this time. Stardrake dies. Wow. And in fact, do you want to know how the Stardrake died? Because I put Finest Hour on it. It didn't actually die in combat. It actually died because Arkan countercast a spell and killed the Stardrake. So it had 5 wounds left. And I think I've got this right. So it's 10 dice And you roll them, and every 6 is a mortal wound. And then each one of those 6s, you get to roll it again. And then each 5 is a mortal wound. And then you re-roll those, and each 4 is a mortal wound. So it was like 3 6s. And then 2 of those turned into 5s. And then that turned into a 4. And then it ended up being about 7 mortal wounds. And then I did not pass enough ward saves. So the Stardrake just died from that spell. But I did kill Archon in retaliation. It's just sad that the Paladors failed this very achievable rerollable charge into the Morghasts, where they could have then shot them with the javelins and then fought them. And yeah, not ideal. So I think even losing the Stardrake, if I'd killed Archon and the Morghasts, I think that still would have been a really good position to be in, because these knights are so far away. As it stands, it's looking a bit dicey now. So, into the next turn. I only scored 6. Into my opponent's turn, and you can see the little warband have got onto this objective now. And because these Morghasts are still alive, that means they still have my home objective. So, we've got a manifestation into the Paladors, which they would hope to kill, but they don't. But they're not that bothered, actually, the Paladors, because they can just retreat and charge into something else anyway. And everyone else is just encircling me now. And the Morghasts do manage to kill the Praetors. So, end of round 2. My opponent is in the lead. Who's going next? The Bone Reapers get the double. It's the nightmare scenario. So the Paladors are locked into combat, so they can't redeploy away. And being from in a position where they needed a not that difficult a charge to get in and possibly do some serious damage to the Morghasts, we're now in a position where the Paladors are pinned and they're going to get hit by everybody. Potentially. But here's the dilemma for the Bone Reapers. Do you put every single unit into the Paladors and try and delete them? Do you put the Morghasts into my shooting units? Decisions. So, the Knights are going for my Paladors. The Morghasts are going for possibly the long strikes. I redeploy the Knight Relictor away because I don't want him to get caught up in the crossfire of this madness. And the Morghasts do get into both units. The Knights into the Paladors, so let's see how that fight goes. Well, the Paladors only actually lose 1. With all that defense, I made a lot of saves, and then when I strike back, I actually do some good damage on them. The Morghasts then kill... They don't manage to... They split their attacks. They don't manage to kill any of the long strikes, which is hilarious. And they kill 3 Vigilors. So, it's not bad, actually. It looked like it was going to be the worst case scenario, but we're still in this now. So, 6 points scored, because there's no tactic allowed on the double. Onto my turn 3, I go for Take the Flanks, which I've already got set up with the Wizard up there and the Liberators up on the left. Then, the Questors get stuck into those Knights to try and finish them off, still trailing back onto their objectives so they keep their ward save. And I teleport the Long Strikes away with the Knight Relictor. So they've gone up here onto this objective now, which is the enemy home objective, so that's going to mean big juicy points for me now. But it would have been great if I'd killed off all those Knights now, with Finest Hour on the Questors and All Out Attack, and the Paladors. That would have been very nice. I did not retreat and shoot with the Paladors, or did I? I was thinking about not doing it, because I thought they might redeploy away from me. But I think I actually did do it. I think I did retreat and then go back in again. I decided to take the risk. And into the enemy turn. So yes, it's on to round 4. So the Bone Reapers are going first. Inevitable Demise. So 2 friendly units wholly within enemy territory and more than 9 inches away from all enemy units. And none of those units were set up this turn. Very doable, because there's already, if we go back, this unit and this unit are in position to just do that very easily. So the Morghasts are going to try and hunt down the Knight Relictor. And they're just going to try and score points now. It looks like they've given up on the fight, the Bone Reapers, and they're just trying to score, which is probably wise because I've got more significant fighting units than just this one fighting unit there. So I redeploy away the Knight Relictor, but again, don't go very far. Only about, I think it's 2 inches on that one. And over here, you can see that Questors and the Paladors finish off the Knights, which is good, and the Knight Relictor gets killed by the Morghasts. Now, what am I going to do here? Because the enemy are all over the place. There's a unit there, and a unit there. In my turn 4, I go for take their land, because I've got Liberators hanging out up there anyway. I also want to... When it comes to the enemy turn, I need to stop the enemy from scoring battle tactics now, because I am slightly behind in the points. So, I need to get onto points as well to score big, because I need to stop the enemy scoring my home objective if they go first in the next round. I also need to stop them being able to do take the flanks, ideally. So I want to get that unit in a fight as well. So, I move my Questors and my Paladors this way. This unit redeploys down here. And then it leaves both of my units with a 10-inch charge to get to them, or an 11-inch charge for the Paladors to reach that unit. And the Questors do actually make the charge, and they leave 1 skeleton alive. So I've got this area now, securing my home objective, and the long strikes have moved up into a position where maybe they can threaten something. So I score 10. And into the next round, I win the roll, and I have to take the turn, because if I don't take it in this position, my opponent just does take the flanks and wins the game, because I can't catch up to that, and there's nothing I could do to stop it whatsoever. So I need to take the double turn and not do a battle tactic, and then deny take the flanks for next turn by killing this unit here. So I've got Liberators and Paladors to go and try and do that, and long strikes. So, here we go. And this is the situation we end up in. And earlier on in the report I was talking about always pile in, because what happens is, if we go back, let's have a look at this situation. So the Paladors end up here, the Liberators end up here after charging in. Or like here and here. The Paladors, because I thought, well, I'm just going to kill this whole unit, so why bother piling in? What I should have been doing was going down this way and charging to that end of the unit. Because what I've now allowed them to do, because one of them lived and is outside of combat range, because I didn't bother piling in because I thought I'd kill them all, one of them survived on 1 wound, so I can't even power through to finish the model off, even though I've got 2 command points left, because I'm not in combat anymore, so I can't power through, which would have taken the last wound. So all I had to do, which is totally doable, they've got plenty of movement, they could have got to here and charged in that end, or just piled in when they attacked. They could have denied this and had a very high chance of winning the game from this point. But because I didn't pile in, because I thought, well, they're just going to die, 1 wound left, this guy can actually run away now and try for the battle tactic. Because what my opponent would have had to try, with that model dead, as it should have been, or locked in combat, the only way to get the battle tactic of any kind, or an objective, or to win the game at all, would have been to get this unit of Morghasts onto my home objective, which is here. The only way to do that is to charge the Questors, and they can redeploy away from you, of course, so it would be a very difficult charge to actually make. So it's low odds that they would actually get that objective, I think. And if you did something like auto run onto it, then I don't think that's enough control score to take it, I think, with the distances involved. So I think you would have to charge onto it, and they could redeploy away and make it very difficult. So if this one model had died with 1 wound remaining, you can see the Liberators had Finest Hour and all-out attacks. They actually did some good damage. But there were just enough saves made. It was a pretty good round of saves for the unit that kept 1 guy alive and 1 wound. And because I didn't pile in, it's now out of combat and can now run down here to take my flanks. So, there we go. Into the enemy turn, take the flanks. And there we go, that's a win now for the Bone Reapers. So if that one model with its last wound dies, or is blocked off from doing this, then the game just ends pretty much, I think, as a win to me, because I think that was a long shot to get the Morghasts into the quest stores on this objective. And then even then, you would have to kill some of them and then not lose any in retaliation, which is also maybe. So, there we go. Obviously, it doesn't make much difference because we weren't competing to try and win the event, the two of us at this stage. So, the only difference it makes is just to this one specific game, and into the TSN Arena rankings, actually, where that becomes a win for the Bone Reapers. So, Take the Flanks is scored, points scored, win for the Bone Reapers via 1 wound being alive. So, what a series of close games that was, despite the fact all I got was a draw and a load of losses. And I'm not going to make the excuse of, well, I was the TO, therefore I had greater responsibilities, such as being distracted and making sure everyone was looked after and the games were finishing on time and such. I think they were just some very good, close games. Like the first one, it took a unit of Liberators scoring a tactic right at the end to turn it into a draw. And then there was the game, obviously, with the 50-50 dice roll to decide who won. No chance of that being a draw, it was just someone was going to win either way based on one single dice roll. And then this one, of course, which came down to one model being alive on 1 wound. There was the one against the Trogs, which was like a 2-point loss as well. So loads of very close games, lots of very bad redeploy rolls all over the weekend for me. Especially against the Nurgle, where it would have been great to have a really high redeploy roll there to try and guarantee that one of those units wouldn't have died. And a mixed bag. So the list, the trouble with the Stormcast lists, you make lists that are really good at scoring points, like this one is, because I scored a ton of points over the weekend, loads of victory points, really easy to score tactics with them. You've got teleports all over the place, you've got lots of small units that can score good points. However, again, it's a list that can't stop the enemy scoring. It can't deal with those big blobs of tough to shift meat, or units that keep coming back when you kill them. That didn't come up too much in this event though. So, what is the sweet spot for a Stormcast list? What can score points well, but also kill the enemy fast enough to stop them scoring? And I personally haven't found that yet with my model collection and the lists I've tried out, or at least the way I've been executing the plans. So I tried to explain what my plan was in each game, and I feel like there was some merit to them. There was a couple of issues in the execution, of course, like this situation here, where they could have just automatically prevented that guy from doing this by just piling in, which stops him getting away. But in general, we're talking about the just individual little moments, we're talking about generally in the games, it was a struggle to stop the opposition scoring. What do you think the Stormcast can do differently? And do you think it's something I could have done with this list that would have limited the opponent's scoring? Even when I played to directly counter the enemy scoring tactics, like in this bit here, obviously that lack of piling in there let it down. But I think that strategy was fine, preventing the take their lands, which was the only tactic they had left, I think. Okay, so I was in charge of painting the trophies for this event as the TO, and Rob always has these nice trophies printed out on the 3D printers and then dry brushes them gold or brass or whatever colour. I decided actually this is like a rogue TSN event without Rob's input at all. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to put my own stamp on it and paint them differently and just do like this cool metallic stripe across them instead, just to make them look a bit different, so someone can put it on their shelf and think, yes, that's the event I went to where Andy was the TO. And that'll make it a bit more memorable, I think. Also, the fact that it's way less dry brushing to just do a stripe than to do the whole thing. That may have had something to do with the decision as well. And if you'd like to know if I managed to win any awards at the event I was running, third place Best Painted Army Award, which I am there presenting to myself, shaking my own imaginary hand. So there we go. Third place Best Painted Award. If I'd won an award in every category, I think people rightly would have questioned whether there was any legitimacy and whether there was some kind of vote rigging going on, since I was the one tallying up the scores. So there we go. Tournament over. 5 games. No wins for the Stormcast, but obviously games that were decided on like single wounds and 50-50 dice rolls. So there are plenty of other universes out there where there were multiple wins at this event for the Stormcast. So I don't know whether to read too much into the final result there. But obviously if you leave it down to 1 dice roll, you can't complain if it turns into a loss, because that's on you to make sure that the margin was bigger in your favour when it comes down to those dice rolls at the end. You can't make an excuse there. Also, the way the rankings worked out in round 5, to make sure there were no repeat matchups over the whole event, there were some players playing each other who were like quite a few places apart in the rankings in the last round, which I asked everyone, and that's what everyone preferred to do rather than having repeat matchups. And I think that's the way to do it, especially at a small kind of friendly atmosphere event. At a huge event with like big prizes, I'm sure whoever's in first place and whoever's in second place would have very different opinions on whether they should have a repeat matchup. If, for example, first place was either going to play against second or play against like someone in 8th, and I'm sure the person in second wouldn't be very happy that they would lose their chance to maybe come first, while the person who's going to win gets to play against someone who's allegedly weaker. So in a big, prestigious event, I can understand having repeat matchups at the end to keep the integrity of the rankings table. But in a small, kind of friendly atmosphere event, people wanted to prioritise just making sure we play someone different in every round. So what the table was telling me is that we should have had a repeat of round 1 for me in this game, which would have been against the Sylvaneth again. But we decided we'd mix things up, make sure no one has to play anyone twice. So we get a nice variety of opponents over the course of the weekend. And I think everyone had a very nice time. It was a good atmos, and much fun was had by all. And let me know what you thought of this event, if you were there as well. What you thought of the games, what people think of my list and the strategies employed, whether you think I should be taking different units, whether you think I should be using them differently, and also anything that you've got for my opponents as well, if you've got any tips for them and their armies, because I'm sure some of them are going to be watching this. I know for a fact some of them are, because I've seen them in the chat. So let me know, and also don't forget to like the video, subscribe if for some reason you haven't already, and if you want to send me to more events so you can see more reports, then why not pledge your entire life savings to the PayPal or Patreon links down there as well. I've been thinking actually about doing some more content on this channel, because I got a big influx of subscribers when I did my old world, like old school Chaos Warriors army videos, so that's got quite a few new eyeballs on the channel. I think that one video I did got like 550 new subscribers in a week, or 2 weeks, which is an outrageous rate for this channel. So I might start adding some more stuff to the channel. What do we think? I was thinking about doing a video series where I like play old Warhammer related PC games, you know, like Dark Omen from the 90s on the channel. So if people would be interested in that, let me know as well. I'll mention it at the end of other game system videos as well and see what people think. But just trying to put more on the channel while there's more eyeballs here to try and capitalise on that a bit. Try and build some momentum with viewership. But Age of Sigmar and Old World do get pretty good numbers. Kings of War less so. There's just less people that play that, I think. And also because there's been less of those events. So a lot of the current audience on the channel are more Old World, Age of Sigmar types. See, how long have I been playing everything? So, Warhammer Fantasy on the channel, I've been playing that since, when did I start? Like 2012-ish, the channel? And then Old World, obviously, the old World blew up. So I went over to playing a lot of Kings of War and Age of Sigmar then. But I was doing Kings of War events mostly. Age of Sigmar was reserved for friendly games and the Andy and Rem show. And then, a few years ago, started doing Age of Sigmar events. I'm up to like 34 of them now in just a few years. I've done about 70 Kings of War events. Old World I've done about 12 now, and that's been just over a year. I've been doing about one a month for them. But yeah, there's a lot of variety on this channel, which I think actually hurts the subscriber count a bit, because if people only want to see, let's say, Age of Sigmar, and then they see a Kings of War and an Old World video, I think I don't want that clogging up my subscription page. Unsubscribe. So you see some people make separate channels for each game system, but I don't really feel like doing that. I like to have the variety. It's just whatever I happen to play is what's featured on the channel, pretty much. So, let me know what kind of extra stuff you'd like to see on here. And with that, I think it's about time to wrap this one up. So thanks for everyone for watching in the comments, especially those of you who were one of my opponents at the weekend. Thanks to you in particular. Fun was had by all, including me, as the TO and player in an event, which I wouldn't recommend if it's a lot of players at the event, because that's going to be a lot more admin to keep on top of, but for a small event, I think it was fine. So, all that remains to be said at this point is, good night out there, whatever you are.